Chapter 1051. Lu Qingyi looked pitiful, yet she refused to back down. This was a stark contrast to her usual arrogant and willful self. This showed that Junqing could now easily manipulate her emotions. Getting a top-tier celebrity, who had reigned over the entertainment industry for years, to the point of tears was no easy feat. I give up, okay? Seeing her eyes tearing up even more, Junqing felt a headache coming on and quickly tried to soothe her. If it were just Lu Qingyi, he would not have bothered. But she was the third of 7 sisters. If she complained about him to the group, he would anger several of them at once. The bond between the 7 sisters was truly as close as one body. Then what did you do wrong? Lu Qingyi pouted her soft, pink lips, her glistening eyes filled with accusation and resentment toward him. She grew angrier the more she thought about it. When had she ever cried in front of anyone else? Even in front of her sisters, she had never felt this wronged. She had not expected to cry in front of Junqing today, while feeling overwhelmed. She would rather cry in front of anyone else than this bastard. Yet, after asking what he did wrong, she realized her tone felt off. It sounded exactly like a woman bickering with her boyfriend, acting spoiled and coquettish after he apologized. This realization made Lu Qingyi feel incredibly ashamed, and it showed on her face. What did I do wrong? Junqing's lips curled into a playful smirk. Well, I suppose I was wrong to sit here playing along with your act instead of completing my task so that you, third sister, could fulfill your promise. Upon hearing this, Lu Qingyi immediately dropped her pitiful act. Even the tears that had been on the verge of falling vanished instantly. Junqing, are you even a man? Is your heart made of stone? You unromantic asshole. Lu Qingyi felt like pulling her hair out. She had almost believed her own performance. She did not expect this man to act concerned and apologetic one moment and turn hostile the next. Junqing had only wanted to test her, never expecting Lu Qingyi to truly be faking. So, if the hard approach did not work, she would try the soft one. Junqing found it amusing. If he had backed down, the power dynamic between them would have changed drastically. In love, it is rare for 2 people to be on equal footing. If one person is in a superior position, the other naturally falls to a lower one. The person who invests more will worry more about losing their partner, often accommodating them and trying their best to satisfy the other's demands. The side that invests less is granted more power, gaining control over the relationship and the power to speak. That said, Lu Qingyi's acting skills were truly masterful. She was indeed worthy of being in the entertainment industry, portraying that pitiful, innocent persona to perfection. If it were anyone but Junqing, they would have been easily fooled. To deal with a tough woman like Lu Qingyi, one must use a tougher stance to suppress her. Otherwise, he would eventually be walked all over by this woman. Junqing, having gained some understanding of Lu Qingyi's personality, understood this truth deeply. I do not have time to play games with you. I just hope you fulfill your promise once I am done handling things. Junqing's lips curled up as he stepped forward to pinch Lu Qingyi's perfect, fair, and taut chin, his expression playful. He walked out of the room, leaving a conflicted and stormy-faced Lu Qingyi behind. Chapter 1052. Junqing stepped out of Lu Qingyi's room and pinched the bridge of his nose with a headache. If his intuition had not flared up at the critical moment, sensing something off, he would have almost fallen into Lu Qingyi's trap. None of these female leads were easy to deal with. If he had actually tried to coax her just now, he might have appeased her, or even won a sliver of her heart. However, his future standing would be uncertain. Dealing with such an aggressive and manipulative woman required him not to spoil her too much. Since Lu Qingyi suffered from androphobia, he figured it was simply because she had never experienced a man properly. In the future, he would make sure she welcomed him with open arms and knelt down to call him daddy. For now, however, he still needed to figure out how to resolve the issues plaguing the 2 sisters. He thought it over carefully. While all their emotional knots were tied to each other, they ultimately stemmed from that incident 10 years ago. Junqing narrowed his eyes and picked up his phone to order his men to investigate the matter. The affair likely involved too many powerful figures, making it highly classified and critical. Even with the intelligence network Junqing had built, it took several days to gather all the information. Of course, this was also because he had ordered a private investigation. Merely listening to Lu Qingyi's verbal account made him feel that this matter was extremely complex and far-reaching. He had not even utilized the Xia family's resources. If he had used the Xia family to investigate, his grandfather and the others would inevitably find out. It was a matter that even the Xia family might not be able to remain detached from. So many young, beautiful girls had been kept in captivity, serving as playthings for the upper echelons of the capital. He worried that his own grandfather might one day decide to relieve his youth and participate. Few families that reached the center of power were simple. There was no such thing as a purely good or purely evil family. People were the same way. Even Junqing, who was a great villain, was no exception. Occasionally, he would be struck by kindness and save a few young girls on the verge of going astray. Therefore, given how widespread this involvement was, he did not believe the Xia family could remain completely uninvolved. The Dark Castle. Founder Chengtao and Tian. Junqing narrowed his eyes as he looked over the profile reports and criminal records of the 2 men, gaining a rough understanding of the entire sequence of events. Initially, Chengtao used his experience and connections in the entertainment industry to open his own company. The clients he served were prominent industry moguls, many of whom were billionaires. Later, he actually attracted a top-tier second-generation scion from the capital Tian, to join in, which completely opened up Song Chengtao's social network among the elite. At first, the resources they provided to the high society were merely stars from the entertainment industry. Later, to better control the powerful figures of the upper class and make them serve their own ends, the malicious duo reached out to grab a group of innocent and naive underage girls. As the number of lured girls increased, Song Chengtao and his associates even bought a plot of land on the outskirts of the capital to use as their private den of iniquity. They attracted celebrities from around the world to come there and indulge. At the same time, they installed hidden cameras in every room of their premises. They captured the unknown sides of those celebrities and big figures, using them time and again to blackmail them into paving the way for their own accumulation of wealth and power. After all, the net of justice is wide and does not miss. No matter how hidden things were, they were eventually filmed and exposed. However, it was a massive scandal that involved many celebrities and important figures. All information was sealed and hidden, and very few people knew about this earth-shattering case. Yet, what was silence-inducing was that the number of people tried was merely a few dozen. Aside from the founder, Song Chengtao, who took the fall for all the charges, and some small-time thugs and lackeys, those who had patronized or participated in the crimes had all escaped the net of the law unscathed. Even the other main perpetrator, Tian, remained completely safe. The day after Song Chengtao was imprisoned, he died mysteriously in his cell. Even the coroner could not determine the cause of death. In the end, the case was hastily concluded. The innocent girls could only live out the rest of their long lives carrying the weight of their grief, anger, and humiliation. They really gave me a tough problem. After finishing the report, Junqing leaned back in his chair, gazing at the sea of skyscrapers outside the window in silence for a long time. He lamented the greed and evil of human nature. At the same time, he finally understood why the second and third sisters remained so tight-lipped about this matter to this day. They had both been deeply involved in the beginning and end of this entire case. Chapter 1053. Junqing continued to review the details regarding the Dark Castle and the list of individuals involved in that incident years ago. Thinking about the tricky parts, he narrowed his eyes and began to plan carefully. First, this matter had to be resolved, otherwise the prospect of completely winning over Lu Qingyi and Jianyan would remain remote. Right now, Tianyan and Peng, two sons of destiny, were watching from the sidelines. What he lacked most right now was time. People say women are like water, where boiling them gets you burned, neglecting them makes them freeze into ice that might smash you, but adding some sugar makes them sweet. But shit, if you do not touch them, they will just grow green algae on you. Therefore, for every heroine, he would elevate their favorability to a point of unwavering devotion. Junqing muttered to himself, I will catch the small fish if I can, but for those I cannot, I will have to take action. My dear brother-in-law, there are some figures I do not want to get my hands dirty with, so I will have to push this onto you. What is wrong with your brother-in-law doing his best to please your sister? The figures involved in this matter were not a threat individually, but if they teamed up against him, it would be a nuisance. The scope of involvement was too broad, and many celebrities from the worlds of politics and business were involved. He was not yet powerful enough to confront so many forces. It would be wonderful to simply shift the blame onto the son of destiny, Tianyan, while he took the credit with the second and third sisters. Surely, Tianyan would be very happy to take the fall for his brother-in-law. With the perfect plan in mind, Junqing prepared to take action. He was never an indecisive person. Before starting his plan, he sent a text to Lu Qingyi as a heads-up. Third sister, I will help you resolve your knot. Upon receiving the message, Lu Qingyi was confused. How was this guy planning to help her resolve her knot? After waiting a long time, Junqing did not respond. She could not help but roll her eyes. Was he planning to just brush her off with a single sentence? However, the next day, after seeing the commotion in the capital, Lu Qingyi was stunned, unable to speak for a long time. To think you are still alive. It seems the people behind you are very determined to protect you. After sending the message, Junqing prepared to take action. His first target was Song Chengtao, the founder of the Dark Castle. After he was imprisoned, news of his death spread on the very first day. In reality, after discovering he might be arrested, he used videos he had secretly filmed on his premises to threaten influential figures into protecting him. If he died, those videos would surely circulate. Although those figures were furious at first, their hands were tied. They worked together to stage a performance, bribing countless people with money or coercion to create a fake death certificate. They cremated the body immediately so that even if anyone wanted to verify the identity or the cause of death, there was no evidence left. Even if they knew there were suspicious circumstances surrounding Song Chengtao's death on his first day in prison, they had no choice. After leaving the prison, Song Chengtao changed his name, went abroad for plastic surgery, and created a new identity before returning to the capital with impunity. Surely, the third sister would be very satisfied with this gift. Junqing narrowed his eyes. His figure vanished on the spot, leaving no trace, like a gust of wind blowing past. Power was merely a tool for him to control people, but strength was the true capital for everything. His cultivation had now reached the foundation establishment stage, enough to allow him to contend with small nations. Strength was his foundation for contending with everything. Chapter 1054. Junqing did not intend to beat around the bush regarding this matter. His initial plan was to resolve it quickly and decisively. He always had his own strategies when doing things. Night fell, and he arrived at the penthouse suite of a 5-star hotel. Junqing appeared silently on the hotel balcony. An ordinary person would have been terrified at this sight. This was a high-rise building with dozens of floors, reaching over 100 meters in height. Yet, in the martial arts world, this was a common occurrence. An average master-level expert could achieve this, not to mention that Junqing was now at the foundation establishment stage. He could basically detach himself from the influence of gravity and glide easily in the air. He could only fly briefly, and at a very slow speed, but these few dozen floors were nothing. In a few seconds, he was able to reach the top floor from the shadows at the base of the building. His target this time was not one of the ringleaders. It was one of the henchmen from the Dark Castle. This man had been imprisoned for organ smuggling, and was later released on a reduced sentence. Chengtao had taken a liking to him and brought him into the Dark Castle. He was later sued for human trafficking, but the case stalled because there was no solid evidence and the accuser mysteriously disappeared. He was responsible for the kidnapping and trafficking of many young girls, and was one of the primary figures involved. After the Dark Castle fell, he vanished without a trace. Recently, after the founder Chengtao returned from plastic surgery, he followed him back into the shadows. Junqing had chosen to handle these specific members himself, because they were the most depraved and evil among them. Only by eliminating these people could Lu Qingyi's emotional knots dissipate. Evil is often met with greater evil, and since it was beneficial to him, Junqing did not mind playing the villain. Inside the room, a fierce-looking man in his prime was exercising. He suddenly discovered someone on the balcony. His years of experience made him roll toward the bed instinctively. He quickly pulled a silenced pistol from under his pillow and fired 3 shots at Junqing. Junqing wore a calm expression. He did not even look at the 3 bullets as his figure blurred in place, dodging the shots. This is impossible. The Dark Castle henchman stared in shock. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. How could someone appear on a 30th floor balcony, and how could his shots miss? Was this a man or a ghost? Junqing did not care about his confusion, as he was in a hurry to get to the next location. He used an instant movement and pressed a finger against the henchman's forehead. His internal energy penetrated the man's brain, turning it into mush and killing him instantly. Afterward, he took a cold look at the corpse and vanished. The next day, a cleaner rang the bell for a long time. Once the hotel manager entered, everyone screamed in terror and called the police. For the second target, Junqing appeared at another henchman's house. The man was in bed waiting for his companion to come out of the shower when Junqing broke in and killed him secretly. When the woman finished bathing, she assumed he had fallen asleep without waiting for her. She muttered that he was useless and went to sleep next to the corpse for the night. She did not realize until the next day that the man was completely still, his body cold to the touch. She was terrified out of her wits. The third and fourth targets were steaming in a sauna at their own hot spring club. When the staff noticed they had been inside too long, they went to check the situation. They found both men dead in the sauna room filled with steam. At first, the staff thought the guests had suffered from oxygen deprivation due to the high temperature, so they called an ambulance. It was only when they arrived at the hospital that it was discovered they had been dead for a long time. The 5th target. The 6th target. With the support of intelligence, Junqing knew their specific whereabouts with great speed. He was killing them so quickly that he had not been exposed yet. These henchmen and traffickers usually had contacts with superiors. He feared that if he killed too slowly, they would become alert and change locations. Many of the people he needed to resolve were legal, public figures. These individuals were different from ordinary gang bosses, and were considered big shots around the capital. Their every move caused quite a stir, so finding their locations was not difficult. In fact, the smaller the role, the more troublesome they were to investigate. Therefore, he handled these small figures first to avoid any fish slipping through the net. Chapter 1055. In the capital, inside a high-end club, Chengtao was drinking with several of his henchmen. He had a club girl in his arms, groping her while chatting with his men. His face looked sinister and venomous, with eyes as sharp as blades that occasionally flashed with a murderous glint. His skin was dark and rough, but his muscles were well-defined and sleek, showing he was not just some oversized brute, but a skilled fighter. Although he was well into his 40s and nearing the onset of aging, years of training and maintenance kept him at his physical peak. His robust frame, combined with a pair of vicious eyes, made him intimidating. Many people found it difficult to remain calm even under his quiet gaze. However, his facial features often gave off a strange sense of dissonance, as if he had gone under the knife. Based solely on his appearance, he looked like an ordinary middle-aged man in his early 30s. Yet, anyone who understood his past behavior and ruthless style knew he was a true hardened criminal. Boss, several of the latest batch of cargo died, and fourth brother went off secretly to play again. These were top-tier girls, so we took a significant loss. One of the henchmen downed a glass of wine and complained, emboldened by the alcohol. He rarely dared to complain to his boss, as he simply lacked the courage. Life had been hard for everyone in recent years, and his boss's temper had become increasingly volatile. Make him pay for it himself. That bastard knows our current situation is bad. Warn him that if he dares to pull that stunt again, I will break his legs and let him rot in bed for a few months, Chengtao said coldly. Actually, fourth brother is just frustrated. We are like rats in the street now, hiding everywhere, and we cannot move freely, another high-ranking henchman said, downing a heavy glass of wine, and slamming his fist against the wall. Damn it, isn't that all because of Lu Qingyi? When our dark castle was riding high, we lived such happy lives, and even top-tier stars were within our reach, but now it is hard to even get a couple of girls. Upon hearing Lu Qingyi's name, a murderous aura flashed in Song Chengtao's eyes. He squeezed the wine bottle in his hand so hard it shattered, causing the club girl beside him to tremble slightly. Boss, do not be angry, I will stop talking. One of the henchmen nearby stammered. They knew this man best, and if he really lost his temper, he would not care about them. Curse, keep cursing. I have never suffered such a huge loss. And that sister of hers, they had better pray they never fall into my hands. Song Chengtao's facial veins bulged, his face flushed, and his eyes grew cold and piercing, like a venomous snake. The many henchmen looked at each other and had no choice but to comply. They knew their boss always avenged grievances immediately, but now he could only vent his rage in impotent fury, clearly helpless against Lu Qingyi, who had reduced them to this state. Isn't that Lu Qingyi just a big star? At most, she is a bit prettier and more famous. With the boss's strength, why not go take revenge privately? A new recruit whispered, asking his colleague with confusion. Revenge? If it were that easy, the boss would have taken revenge long ago. It is just that he cannot beat that woman. The subordinate beside him revealed a look of fear at the mere mention of her. Isn't she just a woman? Could the boss really not be able to beat her? That is impossible, the new recruit said, looking skeptical. He had seen Song Chengtao lift a 100-pound dumbbell with one hand and even jump while holding it, all with apparent ease. With that kind of power, a single punch could kill a man. So how could he not handle one woman? Let me put it this way, our boss always pays back his debts. He never took revenge on the law enforcement officers who arrested him back then, simply because if they had not arrived in time, the boss would have been crippled by Lu Qingyi. Who would have thought a woman could have such immense strength? With one punch, she sent the boss flying into the wall, vomiting blood, and even cracked the wall. The henchman recalled the scene, shrugging with a sense of relief. I suspect that woman is a martial artist, not an ordinary person. Before the henchman could finish, Song Chengtao downed a cup of wine to silence the commotion in the room. Enough, everyone. Damn it, I have never suffered such a great loss, but I will definitely have my revenge. But boss, we cannot beat her, she is too strong. Back then, she took down 20 of us all by herself. That is right, boss, we cannot throw eggs against a rock, one of the brothers urged. Those around them fell silent upon hearing this. When these few men went out, every thug boss would kowtow to them. They never expected that facing one woman could only be described as throwing eggs against a rock. I have wanted to deal with Lu Qingyi for 10 years, do you think I am not aware of that? Not just me, even that Jiang Tian could do nothing about her, but recently, I have found a way, Song Chengtao said viciously. What way? The henchman asked, full of curiosity. Recently, a Jura society came to the capital. I heard it is a killer organization from abroad that has supposedly gone clean, but I have connections, and they still take jobs in the shadows. The Azura Society is a massive organization. They can slaughter martial artists and superpowered individuals from abroad, and the Azura King is the king of the dark world. I refuse to believe they cannot handle that woman Lu Qingyi. I will have the Azura Society capture Lu Qingyi. Damn. Back then I could not even get close to her, but if we catch her this time, I will make sure she knows what I am capable of. Song Chengtao felt his blood boiling at the thought, and could not wait to head to the Azura Society to negotiate. The Azura Society? I have heard of them. That is a famous international power. Even though it seems their headquarters were taken down by some unknown force a while back, a lean camel is still bigger than a horse, so taking down one Lu Qingyi should be more than enough. Exactly. We can finally get our revenge this time. Boss, if you catch her, can you reward the brothers and let us have a taste of a diva? The surrounding brothers could not help but laugh. Chapter 1056. Song Chengtao was about to joke with his brothers when he noticed his phone ringing in his pocket. His frown deepened. This number was not something ordinary people knew. Only those closest to him had access to it. Song gestured for the group to quiet down before picking up the phone. Seeing young Master Jiang on the caller ID, he paused briefly before answering. Hello, is there something you need, young Master Jiang? Song Chengtao, get the hell out of there, several of my men just died. In Song's mind, the young Master Jiang Tian had always been composed and influential. Getting him out of prison and finding a scapegoat had been easy tasks for him in the past. This was the first time he had seen the man so frantic. What happened, young Master Jiang? Please, tell me slowly. Song's thrill from moments ago cooled down rapidly. He was no fool. Jiang would not be this desperate unless something major had occurred. Did my identity get exposed? Are the cops coming for me? Song felt a flicker of anxiety as he made the guess. I do not know. You know who I am. Nothing in the capital stays hidden from my eyes and ears. Just today, I received reports from my subordinates that many factions seem to have started investigating the Dark Castle incident in secret. What? People are investigating again? Song's face turned ashen. He had spent the last decade living like a sewer rat, hiding, changing his identity, and getting plastic surgery just to avoid this very thing. He did not want to go back to that life of constant evasion. You know, things were chaotic back then. With multiple factions interfering, I could not wipe the slate clean entirely, and I left behind loose ends. If I had not begged my family elders to suppress the matter, we would have been finished long ago. That is why I immediately contacted my men from back then to tell them to lay low. But just moments ago, I received word that 5 of my subordinates have died mysteriously, and I can no longer reach several others. Dead. Song went numb. If the cops had arrested them, he could have accepted that. But with so many dying simultaneously today, there was only one possibility. Someone had hired a professional organization to retaliate against them. Song thought quickly, connecting the dots in an instant. Yes, they are all dead. And the ones I cannot reach are likely dead as well. Get out of the capital immediately, and do not come back. Even I am not willing to make an enemy of this kind of force. Jiang spoke rapidly. He figured a killer organization capable of slaughtering his men without a sound was not to be trifled with. Whoever hired them was clearly not a simple adversary. They were definitely coming for him, and the secrets of the Dark Castle. All right. I am leaving immediately. Young Master Jiang, please arrange a flight out of the country for me. Song ignored the surprised looks from his men, grabbed his things, and prepared to leave. Just as Song pulled open the door to the private room, he saw a young man standing there. His features were stunningly beautiful, almost to an unnatural, monstrous degree. Is this new merchandise for the club? Maybe I should have some fun before I leave. Song swallowed hard in secret. Chapter 1057. Is this new merchandise for the club? Maybe I should have some fun before I leave. A lewd thought flashed through Song Chengtao's mind, and his eyes grew burning hot. He did not have much prejudice regarding whether it was a man or a woman. Moreover, this person looked better than the stars he used to play with. In his life, he had seen countless celebrities with outstanding looks, but apart from that bitch Lu Qingyi, he had never seen anyone who could compare to this man before him. But he soon thought of the unknown death threat, and he hurriedly shivered. If that killer organization was really investigating the Dark Castle, and so many brothers were already dead, he did not think he would be an exception. In the single second Song Chengtao was stunned, the man with the face surpassing that of a celestial being suddenly revealed a pleasant smile. I finally found you, Song Chengtao. Junqing walked in with a smile, casually closing the door to the private room. This behavior, instead, made Song Chengtao begin to grow vigilant. If it were someone from the club, no one would dare call him by his name directly. Who are you? What are you here to do? Before Song Chengtao could finish his sentence, Junqing waved his hand, striking him. His body flew sideways, slamming heavily into the wall as he spat out a large mouthful of blood. The henchmen still in the room were shocked, and they stood frozen in place one by one. The previously noisy, howling room was suddenly filled only with the sound of the audio system, and Song Chengtao's painful wailing as he knelt on the floor. Well, it seems everyone is here. I finally do not have to travel so far. Junqing scanned the faces of everyone in the room, revealing a warm and gentle smile. He looked as if a gentle, refined older brother next door had suddenly walked into a filthy and chaotic place. The dim environment could not obscure his holy, beautiful temperament and appearance. Yet the people around him were plunged into extreme fear as they looked at him. They wondered if this person in front of them was even human. With just a wave of his hand, their boss had flown away, as if he were a toy, cracking a large chunk of the wall. How the hell could an ordinary person do that? For a moment, no one dared to act rashly. Are you that killer? What are you doing here? Song Chengtao spat out another large mouthful of blood, struggling to shrink back into the corner with a look of terror. He screamed frantically in his heart, realizing this was indeed one of those terrifying martial artists, and he was definitely not weak among them. He had once sparred with a third-rank martial artist whose strength was not stronger than his, and perhaps even inferior. Yet this person had beaten him into serious injury with a simple wave of his hand. A killer. News travels fast, it seems. It appears you were planning to run just now, but fortunately I was quick, and did not waste my breath on people like you, Junqing said indifferently. At the same time, he pointed a finger, and a beam of energy invisible to ordinary people shot out, killing a henchman who had been trying to secretly make a call. Suddenly, no one in the room dared to move anymore. However, it made no difference whether they moved or not, as they were certainly not going to escape. I do not know who you are, but this is a society ruled by law. You have killed so many people, and you will not get away with it. Song Chengtao knew that things were hopeless and his lackeys were no match for this man, so he forced himself to calm down, attempting to communicate with Junqing. The founder of the Dark Castle is talking to me about a society ruled by law. Junqing showed a look of disdain. Although he was a major villain, he had not committed as many evils as this person before him. Some villains stood in opposition to the protagonist, while others had truly committed too many atrocities. Such as this man. To be honest, when he had carefully investigated everything this man had done, the bloody history and countless shattered families, made even Junqing fall into a moment of silence. Chapter 1058. The crimes committed by Song Chengtao were shocking, even to Junqing. It was laughable that such a man would dare to speak of a society ruled by law. What must I do for you to spare me? You do not seem to bear a personal grudge against me, Song Chengtao pleaded, tears streaming down his face. I have money. Are you a killer? I will pay you double, no, 10 times. You know about the Dark Castle, so you know how much I am worth. I will give you everything, just please spare me this once. Song Chengtao knew his life hung in the balance, so he knelt and begged. Inwardly, however, he was fuming. It was the first time he had been beaten this badly, and he vowed that if he survived, he would find someone to kill this man. Of course, before seeking revenge, he would have to flee to a place where no one could find him and never return. He had returned to the Xia kingdom to seek revenge against Lu Qingyi, assuming the Dark Castle affair was forgotten, but he had been hunted down first. I have no grudge against you, but all those girls who must live their lives in the shadows certainly do. I intended to kill you, but that would be too quick a death. After some thought, Gu Junqing decided against ending Song Chengtao's life immediately. He needed to cut the roots by eliminating the henchman, but this man was the key to unlocking Lu Qingyi's heart. You are right. A despicable person like me should not die so easily. You must torture me to vent your hatred. Song Chengtao felt a flicker of hope and bowed repeatedly, though cold malice filled his eyes. He glanced imperceptibly at the phone, which was still connected to young Master Jiang Tian. As long as he did not die, he had a chance to escape. Jiang Tian had saved him from a high-security prison before and staged his death. He believed Jiang Tian could save him again. Gu Junqing watched him and knew exactly what he was thinking, sneering inwardly. Did the man truly believe he was some kind saint who would leave behind loose ends? Gu Junqing raised a hand, sending a white streak of energy directly into Song Chengtao's brain, instantly reducing him to an imbecile. With a series of rapid strikes, he pierced Song's vital acupuncture points, each one accompanied by a sharp, piercing sonic boom. Ah, ah, ah. Although he was now an imbecile, the pain caused his body to arch instinctively like a shrimp, letting out a terrifying, shrill scream. The remaining henchmen in the room finally understood that this man did not want to kill Song Chengtao immediately. He wanted to torture him to ensure he suffered. Big brother, we were wrong. Please do not kill us. We were just following his orders. As a few henchmen had tried to resist or flee and were already killed, few remained in the room. Hearing Song's shrill screams, their legs shook like reeds, and many soiled themselves in fear. Humph. Gu Junqing could not be bothered with them, as none of them were good people. He did not want his identity exposed, so he would not spare them. Gu Junqing did not act often, but when he did, he cut the weeds and dug up the roots. The room fell silent before anyone could even scream, and they all collapsed dead. Gu Junqing walked out looking like a refined young nobleman, leaving the room behind him looking like a living hell. Chapter 1059. After coming out, Gu Junqing considerately closed the door for the corpses, made an anonymous call to the police, and then drifted away. He did not need to worry about the aftermath. Naturally, someone would handle things properly. Besides, Song Chengtao's mind had already been wiped clean, so even if they were discovered, no one would be able to extract any information. A torrential downpour began to fall from the sky, as if trying to wash away all the evil in the world. Gu Junqing sat in the vehicle arranged by his subordinates, a mobile phone appearing in his hand. This was precisely Song Chengtao's phone. Gu Junqing did not know what Jiang Tian was thinking, but the man still had not hung up the call. Perhaps he wanted to confirm if all his men were truly dead. You killed Song Chengtao. Who are you? Which organization are you from, and what the hell are you trying to do? Jiang Tian's gloomy, furious voice emanated from the phone. Everyone knew Song Chengtao was a capable tool he used to amass wealth, and now he had just been killed like that. This was a direct slap to his face. Moreover, to kill so many of his men in such a short time, the other side could not possibly be just one person. Therefore, Jiang Tian desperately wanted to know the identity of his opponent. Otherwise, even with his noble status, ordinary killers would never dare to target him, but he could still run into some organizations with a death wish. Have you ever seen a killer expose themselves? Gu Junqing said with a light chuckle. He knew a thing or two about Jiang Tian. The man's status was not low, and the Jiang family's position was likely not much weaker than his grandfather Xia's family. Otherwise Jiang would not have been able to string together such a massive dark empire. Gu Junqing estimated that if he had not intervened, the one destined to clash with Jiang Tian would undoubtedly have been Tianyan. So, was this guy perhaps another high-status villain, who would still get his face slapped and serve as a stepping stone for the protagonist? Gu Junqing narrowed his eyes, his thoughts racing. He was already thinking about how to reap the rewards of the situation. Coward, you do not even dare to state your own name, so where did you get the guts to kill my men? Besides, do not think I cannot track you down. Jiang Tian snorted coldly. Ha, do not try to provoke me, Jiang family's Jiang Tian. Do you think the Azura Society would not dare to kill you? Gu Junqing said in a leisurely tone. The Azura Society. You are from the Azura Society. The Azura Society, and I have had no conflict, so why have you come to assassinate my men, or who hired you? Jiang Tian fell silent for a moment after hearing the name, unable to calm his racing heart. Anyone with a slightly higher status knew the terror of the Azura Society. It was a horrifying organization capable of assassinating heads of state, filled with killers who were all skilled in strange talents, including users of supernatural abilities, ancient martial artists, ninjas, and assassins from various countries. Even though rumors said the Azura Society's base was wiped out recently, leaving them severely injured, they were still not to be underestimated. If his men had truly been targeted by the Azura Society, it was no wonder to Jiang Tian why they had died so quickly. Naturally, someone paid the price. Gu Junqing said indifferently. Damn you, Azura Society. Do you not know that Song Chengtao was one of my Jiang family's people? Your Azura Society's headquarters in the Eagle Kingdom was destroyed, and now you want to establish a base in the Xia Kingdom. Are you not afraid of my Jiang family? Do you think this is still the Eagle Kingdom? Jiang Tian threatened with a gloomy tone. Let alone the fact that the Azura Society gets paid to do a job. which is none of your business. Let us talk about your Jiang family. Do you think the Azura Society is afraid of you? I advise you to sleep with your eyes open tonight, haha. Gu Junqing used Dao Tianyan's voice to let out a sinister, cackling laugh, and then, not caring about the other party's reaction, he hung up the phone directly. That should be enough hatred stirred up for now. Gu Junqing rubbed his chin and muttered to himself. In truth, he did not care about stirring up hatred, as his priority now was to hurry and see the third sister, Lu Qingyi, to claim his reward. Chapter 1060. In a luxury villa in the capital, a man in his late 20s or early 30s smashed his phone in a fit of rage. How dare they threaten me? There are very few people in the entire Xia kingdom who dare to threaten me. Jiang Tian laughed in extreme anger. However, after calming down, Jiang Tian fell into deep thought. The killers of the Azura Society were truly different from ordinary organizations, as they were filled with too many exceptional talents. If they targeted someone, even a president or king would risk assassination. He had learned that once, a president of a small nation conflicted with the Azura Society, and the Azura king ruthlessly took action. He infiltrated the heavily guarded presidential palace alone, moved freely through its defenses, assassinated the president, and even escaped unscathed afterward. This incident sparked widespread international discussion. From that point on, no one dared to target the Azura Society again. But that was the Azura Society of the past. If an organization whose headquarters had been wiped out dared to provoke his Jiang family, he refused to believe these stray dogs could actually do anything to him. Young master, what should we do now? A man who looked like an elderly butler stood beside Jiang Tian. Go and investigate the background of the Azura Society. Also, find me 2 more masters to protect me personally. Money is no object, the stronger the better. Jiang Tian was not a fool. He did not want to be assassinated before he could find dirt on the Azura Society. What should we do about Chengtao? News just came in that a large group of law enforcement officers and martial arts association members have rushed over. If Chengtao is not dead, and his identity is discovered, the politicians we threatened might come after us. We made it clear that we would not let him return, which is why they let him off. The butler whispered, dead or alive, just take care of him. To think he wanted to deal with that person's sister, even her Jiang family, is no match for that person, otherwise, it would not be his turn to take revenge on Lu Qingyi. If it weren't for the people behind her that we cannot afford to provoke, who wouldn't want a taste of such a beauty? Jiang Tian sneered. He had protected Chengtao initially only because Song held compromising information on those politicians. Now that the Dark Castle affair had been gradually forgotten, he saw no need to keep Chengtao alive. Yes, I will arrange it right away. Early the next morning, as soon as Lu Qingyi opened her phone, she found many news articles about homicides. However, the news was quickly suppressed. The identities of the people killed were complicated to investigate, and every one of them had blood on their hands. The probability of such people being murdered in revenge was extremely high. It happened almost every day. However, an incident of this scale still drew high-level attention from law enforcement. Later, investigations suggested this was the work of martial artists, so the matter was quickly suppressed from above and handed over to the Martial Arts Association to handle. Lu Qingyi only glanced at it and did not want to look any further. However, when she saw the identities of some of the people released by law enforcement, she was shocked to discover that many of them were the culprits behind the Dark Castle incident 10 years ago. After investigating through certain channels, Lu Qingyi gazed at the bloody photos in front of her and fell into silence. Chapter 1061. Lu Qingyi gazed at the blood-stained photographs before her, her initial reaction one of disbelief. She did not truly believe that Gu Junqing would go to such lengths for her sake. She had meticulously examined and pondered every piece of information she could gather on Gu Junqing, from online reports to private investigator files. Furthermore, after spending so much time with him recently, she could say she had gained some understanding of him. Yet, whether from news reports or her own impressions, Gu Junqing did not seem like someone who would kill indiscriminately. He was simply a young master from an illustrious family, with no worries about food or clothing. The most strenuous activities he usually engaged in were likely drinking and picking up women. At most, some wealthy second-generation heirs or young masters harbored a few idealistic ambitions. Gu Junqing, however, differed from her ingrained stereotypes. Aside from the fact that he lacked those vices, his inexplicable martial prowess was far beyond the reach of ordinary people. As a child, she had followed her master and trained in martial arts for several years, and the hardships she endured were far beyond what a normal person could withstand. Working from dawn to dusk and training on ice and snow were all considered routine. She felt she had a high tolerance for pain, yet even then, she had not managed to persist as her eldest and second sisters had. Gu Junqing's strength, however, surpassed even her second sister, who was a top-tier assassin. This was the first time Lu Qingyi, who always thought highly of herself, felt a sense of admiration. It seems my understanding of him was only superficial, she sighed. However, the more Lu Qingyi thought about it, the more speechless she felt. Although she admired Gu Junqing's perseverance in martial arts, she admired the bastard's lust even more. Just how badly did he crave her body? She had learned some details about the incident through internal channels within the law enforcement department. Initially, law enforcement investigated the identities of the deceased and discovered they were not good people. Consequently, they simply classified the incident as a major revenge killing. After a while, however, they discovered that neither the surveillance footage at the scene nor the fingerprints, tracks, and hair samples collected showed anyone had been present. It was as if a ghost with no trail had murdered those people. Furthermore, the cause of death for the victims was extremely bizarre. There were no external wounds, but after autopsies, their internal organs and brains were found to be reduced to mush. Some experienced officers felt this incident was not so simple, suspecting it was the work of an expert with incredible personal martial strength. That was why they reported it to the Martial Arts Association. Upon investigation, the Martial Arts Association determined that it required at least a Grandmaster-level expert capable of projecting internal energy to achieve such results. Yet, despite a joint investigation by law enforcement, the Martial Arts Association, and other departments, no results were produced. This demonstrated the sheer mastery of Gu Junqing's assassination skills. A wealthy second-generation heir possessing better assassination capabilities than her second sister, a professional top-tier killer, left Lu Qingyi feeling speechless. It seems I will have to pick up my martial arts training again after I retire, otherwise in the future. Lu Qingyi began to let her imagination run wild. Ever since she heard the news in the morning, her thoughts had become extremely complicated. One moment she felt immense indignation that so many fish had slipped through the net regarding the Dark Castle incident all those years ago, and she thought Gu Junqing had done a great job eliminating them. Then she thought that such evildoers should naturally be punished by the law, and Gu Junqing had only dirtied his hands by killing them. Yet, her train of thought magically jumped to the future, where Gu Junqing possessed such formidable martial strength that if she could not defeat him, she might truly be taken by this bastard who craved her body. Chapter 1062. In Lu Qingyi's view, a person of status should not take unnecessary risks. Given Gu Junqing's current identity and position, why would he ever engage in the dirty work of a killer? He could simply open his mouth and have countless people work for him, so there was no need for him to act personally. The only explanation was that he was a man driven by lust. He was impatient to fulfill his promise to her, so much so that he could not wait for her to act herself. Lu Qingyi remained lost in these stray thoughts, but after a moment, she grew too lazy to continue dwelling on them. Although she did not necessarily condone Gu Junqing's methods, she was not opposed to them either. Sometimes, violence is the only way to resolve violence. It must be said that Gu Junqing clearing away these illegal thugs who had bullied so many girls made her own soul feel much cleaner. The heavy burdens and blockages of the past had all dissipated. Her mood suddenly became extremely cheerful. She wanted to practice yoga to maintain her good spirits, so she excitedly walked into the changing room, put on her attire, and began. As for Gu Junqing's affairs, she did not need to worry about them. As a young master from an illustrious family, she did not need to concern herself with the cleanup. After handling all the consequences, Gu Junqing arrived downstairs at Lu Qingyi's company. Recently, her second sister, Tianyan, was out on a mission and was not home. Although Tianyan had largely retired behind the scenes, she still agreed to handle difficult national tasks when necessary. This time was no exception. Because her second sister was away, Lu Qingyi did not want to return home, and she slept in the bedroom of her studio every day. Gu Junqing had no choice but to come here to find her third sister. Following the instructions of the studio staff, Gu Junqing learned that Lu Qingyi was in the vocal practice room, so he went directly to find her. However, when he pushed open the door to the vocal practice room, the scene before him took him by surprise. The studio was huge and served as a private room specifically for Lu Qingyi to practice her singing. Normally, Lu Qingyi would not let others inside. It was only because Gu Junqing's status was different from the others that the studio staff allowed him to pass. Gu Junqing had expected Lu Qingyi to be practicing singing, but instead, he saw a woman in the middle of the room, wearing white yoga clothes and gray yoga pants doing yoga. The woman's figure was alluring, and every movement was as soft and boneless as if she had no frame at all. Her slender waist seemed to sway in the wind, outlining the breathtaking lines of her chest. The yoga pants were form-fitting and long, completely tracing the shape of her jade-like legs. Her body was full and rounded, and her skin, which was as delicate as if it could be broken by a touch, shimmered with a pale, jade-like luster. Third sister, what is the mood to do yoga today? Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow slightly, and stood to the side, appreciating Lu Qingyi's perfect figure, while his eyes caught sight of the heavy weight before her, igniting a fire in his heart. He had been feeling restless since early that morning, and seeing this breathtakingly beautiful body only fueled his desires further. Sensing Gu Junqing's gaze, Lu Qingyi instinctively covered her chest, glaring at him fiercely with a threat that lacked any real power. However, discovering that her threats seemed useless against him, she let out a sigh of defeat and lowered her hands, choosing not to cover herself or hide as she displayed her beautiful figure before him. Yet, this made her feel truly unnatural, as if she had been laid bare before Gu Junqing. The sensation made goosebumps rise all over her skin. If it were anyone other than Gu Junqing, she would not even dare to imagine herself standing before them in yoga attire. Just the thought of it made her feel sick. I just felt like doing it, because I am in a good mood. Lu Qingyi let out a soft hum. Could this be a reward from you, third sister? Because that is not enough. Gu Junqing lifted the corners of his mouth in a mischievous smile. Chapter 1063. Could it be that you, third sister, knew I was coming and dressed like this on purpose? Gu Junqing rubbed his chin, circled behind Lu Qingyi, and spoke with great interest. In his eyes, although Lu Qingyi was covered by the yoga outfit, her figure was undeniably revealed. It even gave the feeling of a beauty half hidden behind a lute, alluring and indistinct, with proud, undulating curves that made eyes burn with desire. Gu Junqing's gaze wandered from her fragrant back down to her waist. Her waist was slender, as delicate as silk and small enough to be encircled by a hand, curving with the soft charm of a water snake. Further down, her hips suddenly plumped up, rounded and firm, tightly wrapped in yoga pants with a beautifully rounded shape. According to the old grandmothers, this was the build that could bear a big, healthy son. Even Gu Junqing, who had admired the figures of many heroines, could not help but marvel at her hot and soul-stirring body, unable to look away. He secretly wondered just how good that elasticity would be if they collided. Lu Qingyi turned around, her willow leaf eyebrows raised in anger. Who knew you, bastard, would show up? After lifting her eyes, she noticed Gu Junqing staring intently at her body. She could not help but glare at him, her voice filled with feigned anger. Have you not seen enough? So, third sister, you already know about what happened last night? Gu Junqing spoke to himself, though his gaze shifted from Lu Qingyi's body to her breathtakingly beautiful face. What you did has caused such a stir and an uproar throughout the city. How could I not know? Lu Qingyi remained silent for a moment before rolling her eyes, pretending to be indifferent. So, was it really on purpose to show me? Gu Junqing chuckled softly. Who did it for you to see? I am just doing yoga to keep in shape. Is that not allowed? I am going to change, and after that, you are going to tell me all about your heroic deeds. Lu Qingyi hummed softly. Ignoring Gu Junqing's lingering gaze, she walked off toward the dressing room of the singing studio. She had so many little secrets hidden away. Gu Junqing muttered to himself, knowing this was the last bit of reserve and pride left for Lu Qingyi, the diva. In terms of favorability, Lu Qingyi's feelings for him had reached around 50 or 60, surpassing a mere confidant and approaching the level of admiration. If it were not for the hurdle she felt regarding herself and her sisters, her stubbornness would not have lasted this long. Gu Junqing had a very accurate grasp of a woman's heart. Lu Qingyi's current reluctant, playing hard to get act was because she had feelings for him, approved of him, and had even decided to give her body to him. However, the two of them had not yet reached the point of naturally coming together. In a way, they were just tied together by a bet and a promise, pushed by circumstances into a semi-reluctant state. Even if Lu Qingyi was 80% willing in her heart, she still believed Gu Junqing only craved her body, which naturally left her feeling unhappy. Gu Junqing stood there thinking for a while, feeling that he had grasped Lu Qingyi's psychology by 80 or 90%, and waited for her to come out. Before long, he saw Lu Qingyi's figure approaching gracefully. She had changed into a pink, form-fitting silk dress, with lotus petal lace at the hem, showcasing a beauty that was both pure and enchanting. As soon as she came out, she demanded that Gu Junqing tell her everything that had happened today. Although she had found some information, it certainly would not be as detailed as what Gu Junqing, who had done it himself, could tell her. Chapter 1064. So that animal song Chengtao was indeed rescued back then. Lu Qingyi's eyes flashed with disbelief and fury after hearing Gu Junqing's account. The Dark Castle scandal involving human trafficking had been significant. Rumors claimed it housed underage girls for the pleasure of the elite, though the public believed it was just a conspiracy theory fueled by those in power. In the eyes of the elite, however, it was a scandalous event that exposed their ugliness. When Song Chengtao died in prison, she initially thought he was murdered by someone fearing exposure of their secrets. She never expected him to still be alive. How could they allow someone who held their secrets to continue living? I do not know about that. I was only 10 years old at the time. Gu Junqing shrugged. His memories had not awakened back then, and he was just a spoiled rich kid. According to the information I uncovered, it was Tian who took action. Furthermore, the powerful figures being threatened were not all united, so the young master of the Jiang family found an opportunity within that power struggle. A game of power. Lu Qingyi sneered. All 7 sisters were orphans, and it was only after reaching their current positions that they gradually understood the lives of the so-called elite. She could not understand how ordinary people were like fish on a chopping block in front of them. For the sake of the light in their hearts and for justice, they often had to risk their lives to see any effect. Yet justice should never be a luxury. It was cruel, but realistic. Gu Junqing hummed, roughly guessing what was on Lu Qingyi's mind. He felt no strong emotional reaction, as he was, after all, a beneficiary of the system. When someone who lived below your class, someone who you think should stay in their place no matter how they struggle, suddenly achieves something you yourself could not do, it usually leads to 2 results, praise or slander. Sometimes, conflict arises from exactly that. Third sister, do not think too much about it. We just need to do our part. Gu Junqing offered a comforting word. He feared that if he said too much, Lu Qingyi would grow to hate him. He had already checked, and this matter had nothing to do with his Gu family, or the Xia family. Of course, even if it did, he would have distanced himself completely. Gu Junqing never left behind any evidence for people to find. And have you done your part? Lu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing with a deep, haunting gaze. Crows are black the world over. Since those in power were like this, was he, as a top-tier successor of the most prominent family in the Xia kingdom, any different? Gu Junqing raised his hand and patted Lu Qingyi's bottom, looking at her with an expression of heartbroken injury. In your eyes, am I really such a beast? Lu Qingyi felt a sting, yet she was speechless. She glared at him, only to find him glaring right back. Who knows? I heard about your methods from last night. You took out 21 people in one night. Lu Qingyi said, her expression unreadable. There is one person who supposedly became an idiot with a strange condition. He had uncontrollable itching and pain. Even the hospital could not do anything for him, and he scratched his entire body to shreds. Chapter 1065. Who knows? I heard about your methods last night, where you took out over 20 people in a single night. One person reportedly became an idiot, suffering from a strange condition where he felt constant, unbearable itching that no hospital could treat, eventually scratching his entire body to shreds. Lu Qingyi said with an expressionless face. Based on what she knew of Gu Junqing, he was not just a beast, he was something far worse. That person was Chengtao, and I only wanted to vent your anger. I promise you that everyone involved in the Dark Castle incident will not get away. Gu Junqing covered Lu Qingyi's slender hand with his own and gripped it, his expression serious. Lu Qingyi was startled, struggling slightly before giving up when she realized she could not break free. She consoled herself that it was not the first time he had taken advantage of her, though she was somewhat touched by his words. She knew this matter was not easy to resolve, otherwise the high-profile scandal would not have been buried years ago. There were countless big fish hiding in the shadows. Even with Gu Junqing's family background and capabilities, dealing with so many people would surely make him a target. Taking the risk to eliminate so many people last night, including one of the ringleaders, Chengtao, was an incredibly difficult feat. Although Lu Qingyi had a deep prejudice against the elite and wealthy heirs, she was not unreasonable. This matter had nothing to do with Gu Junqing, and he was only involved because of her, which naturally touched her heart. I believe you. Lu Qingyi's expression remained unchanged, even after being flirted with by Gu Junqing. This brought a flicker of joy to his heart. It was like a thin membrane. He had touched it and was on the verge of breaking through, needing only a little more pressure to penetrate completely. Feeling the delicate, smooth skin and boneless touch under his hand, Gu Junqing could not help his mind from wandering. He began to caress Lu Qingyi's small hand, then sat down next to her, squeezing her to one side of the sofa. Lu Qingyi pushed him away with her other hand, complaining with annoyance. That is enough. Give you an inch and you take a mile. With so much space available, you insist on squeezing me. Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow, his gaze drifting toward Lu Qingyi's beautiful hips with desire. Ahem, yours is bigger. Instantly, Lu Qingyi's face flushed red. Furious, she pinched Gu Junqing's arm hard. Gu Junqing suddenly grabbed her hand and pressed it against his heart, looking at her affectionately. Qingyi, do you truly not know how I feel? If anyone else had seen this, they might have mocked Gu Junqing for being a sleazy, pretentious man. However, while Lu Qingyi appeared haughty on the surface, she was an artistic girl at heart, which explained her success in the arts. If he did not act with a touch of artistic flair, she would have found him vulgar. If Gu Junqing had continued to play the role of a lewd jerk, Lu Qingyi would have had ways to handle him. When he suddenly changed tactics and stopped fighting her, playing the role of a deeply affectionate man instead, she began to panic. Even though she knew Gu Junqing was seducing her, after seeing what he had done for her, she looked at the man before her, as handsome as a celestial being, and could not bring herself to mock him. Chapter 1066. Lu Qingyi felt that her thoughts were currently somewhat complicated. She had intended to firmly reject Gu Junqing, but looking into his earnest eyes, she softened and felt a surge of hesitation. Although Gu Junqing had always been at odds with her and constantly flirted with her, looking back now, he had never truly harmed her. On the contrary, he had always helped her handle all sorts of issues. Furthermore, while he might be a bit lustful and have a sharp tongue, he seemed to have no other flaws. He was handsome, came from a good family, and had refined manners. If any other woman were pursued by him, she would likely have been beaming with joy and accepted him already. Lu Qingyi hesitated for a moment, still wanting to refuse Gu Junqing. Although she did not feel she disliked the man before her, and perhaps even liked him a little, she found it truly difficult to make up her mind right now. On one hand, she was concerned about the attitude of her second sister, Tianyan, as Gu Junqing was still her boyfriend. On the other hand, she worried that Gu Junqing was truly a beast in human clothing. Having been in the entertainment industry for so many years, she had seen far too much. The stories of scumbags with honest faces and pure idols turning into heartbreakers were countless. However, she had already given up on the idea of love. The reason she could not bring herself to refuse him was primarily due to her androphobia. Up until this point in her life, the only men she did not feel an instinctive, deep-seated revulsion toward were Gu Junqing and her eighth younger brother, Tianyan. However, Tianyan was merely the younger brother of one of her childhood friends, and he had only just been found recently. Therefore, it could be said that Gu Junqing was the only man she could feel comfortable touching without disgust. Third sister, Qingyi. Gu Junqing waved his hand in front of Lu Qingyi. He watched her eyes fixed on his face, but noticed her focus was clearly elsewhere, realizing she had fallen into deep thought. He initially did not want to disturb Lu Qingyi's contemplation. However, seeing that she had been thinking for far too long, he decided to wake her to prevent any further complications. Only a heroine who was not easily affected by looks could stare blankly at my face, Gu Junqing muttered to himself. If it were any ordinary woman, it would be lucky if they did not get aroused just by looking at him. His charm value, which transcended the upper limits, was not just for show. Then how do you plan to tell the second sister? Lu Qingyi, interrupted from her train of thought, quickly snapped back to reality. She made a silent resolution and asked calmly, "Are you really unaware, or are you just pretending? The second sister has been trying to set us up all along. Otherwise, why would she be so comfortable with me sticking by your side constantly? She would be nothing but happy to see us together." Gu Junqing was a bit puzzled by why Lu Qingyi was still hung up on this point. Clearly, both of them had already thoroughly figured out Jianyan's intentions previously. It was obvious that Jianyan had discovered Lu Qingyi did not dislike Gu Junqing, and she was likely impatient to push Lu Qingyi toward him. After all, she knew Gu Junqing was already involved with her other sisters. Compared to those sisters, she was already a latecomer, so one more, the third sister Lu Qingyi, would not make a difference. The second sister, Jianyan, even secretly admired her master for predicting the destiny of the seven sisters so accurately. With Gu Junqing around, there was a real possibility that all seven of them could end up marrying him in the future. Although your method of resolving my inner conflict was somewhat unexpected, it certainly alleviated a great deal of it. I agree to give us a try, but you must agree to a few conditions first. Chapter 1067. No, we can't betray my sister. So what? We are truly in love. Gu Junqing pressed his forehead against Lu Qingyi's forehead, his hot body clinging to her delicate and soft form. His voice sounded somewhat heavy and ragged. No, we can't do this. Lu Qingyi felt that she had clearly refused at first. But as Gu Junqing's hands wandered over her body, the two of them seemed to have unintentionally laid themselves bare. She felt a surge like the incoming tide, roaring and rushing, crashing against her. Her slender, graceful waist was held firmly against the table by a pair of arms, like a small boat in the waves, rising and falling, soaring and crashing. We can't do this so quickly. Lu Qingyi woke up with a start. She opened her star-like eyes instantly, and then let out a sigh of relief. So it was just a dream. This bastard is so perverted even in my dreams. At this moment, Lu Qingyi lifted the quilt, revealing a pair of slender, white legs, intending to get up. When she pulled the quilt back, her beautiful face instantly flushed red, and she hurriedly covered herself back up, looking both ashamed and annoyed. Thinking of the dream she just had, Lu Qingyi could not help but squeeze her pair of white, long legs together under the covers and fidgeted a couple of times. Finally, unable to bear the strange scent filling the air, she hurriedly grabbed a set of new underwear and walked into the bathroom. While cleaning herself, she started to recall the day she agreed to be Gu Junqing's girlfriend. Although your method of resolving my inner conflict was unexpected, it certainly made me feel much better. I agree to try being with you, but you have to agree to a few conditions. Lu Qingyi had also figured it out. She knew in her heart that although her inner turmoil had eased, she still had no interest in other men. Since it was difficult to overcome her androphobia anyway, it was not too difficult to accept Gu Junqing, the only man she was willing to be in contact with. Moreover, if she wanted to stop her second sister from feeling guilty, perhaps it could only start with her truly accepting a man from the bottom of her heart. Chapter 1068. Qingyi, if there is anything else you want to say, just say it all at once. Gu Junqing spoke quickly, wanting to prevent Lu Qingyi from dwelling on this point. You are so disrespectful. Lu Qingyi muttered quietly. She paused for a moment and added, also, you cannot force me to do that. She was not a fool. She knew that if she agreed to be Gu Junqing's girlfriend, a man like him would not be able to resist her. Force you? Gu Junqing could not help but chuckle. He shook his head and spoke with a righteous expression. I, Gu, have always been an honorable man who never forces anyone. As long as you are unwilling, I will definitely not force you to do that. After hearing Gu Junqing's words, Lu Qingyi almost laughed out of anger. She had already been taken advantage of by this bastard so many times, yet he claimed he would not force anyone. Actually, it is not that I am unwilling. Since I have agreed to be with you, I will not hide anything or be reluctant. Gu Junqing nodded, feeling touched by this. Unless it was a romance novel written for a female audience, these daughters of destiny would generally not change their minds once they had made a decision. You should have heard from my second sister that we seven sisters once had a master when we were young. Our master told us that we could do anything, but we must not give our bodies away easily. We can only do so after confirming the shared intention of us seven sisters. Lu Qingyi explained, looking at Gu Junqing with some apology. Since she had decided to be Gu Junqing's girlfriend, she would fulfill all the duties that came with the role. She felt sorry that she could not fully fulfill her duties right away. You know that it will be a while before I retire from the entertainment industry. For now, I do not want to reveal your identity to the public. Lu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing apologetically. No problem, I agree. Gu Junqing was initially a bit nervous, fearing that Lu Qingyi might propose some sort of gentleman's agreement, like waiting 3 months to hold hands or 3 years to kiss. Hearing Lu Qingyi's request, he instantly relaxed. This was exactly what he wanted. It happened that he did not want to expose his identity too much. Some time ago, it had already caused many fish in his harem to lash out in anger. You do not mind? Why do I feel like you are so happy? Lu Qingyi stared at Gu Junqing suspiciously. Are you afraid that after I make it public, your profile will be too high, and you won't be able to look for other women anymore? How could that be? I just do not want to be too ostentatious. Let me ask you a question. If you won 100 yuan in the lottery, Would you post about it on social media to celebrate? Gu Junqing thought it was not good, so he quickly improvised. Every time he fooled a female lead, he felt he was at the peak of his intelligence. No, I am so rich, why would I buy a lottery ticket? Lu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing strangely. Cough, that is not what I mean. Just imagine yourself as an ordinary girl right now. Do you think you would celebrate? Gu Junqing said helplessly. I suppose I would. Lu Qingyi nodded. In fact, if she got something fun, she would also share it with her sisters. Then, what if you won 1 million, 10 million, or even 100 million? You would definitely hide the money away and not show it off, right? Gu Junqing said with affectionate eyes. You are equivalent to that 100 million. I wouldn't want the fact that I obtained such a rare treasure to be known by the whole world. Lu Qingyi thought about Gu Junqing's words, and it seemed there was nothing wrong with them, so she brushed the matter aside. Chapter 1069. Of course I know. I would find it strange if you had never had a woman before. And isn't second sister also your woman? I don't care who came first, as long as you don't fool around outside anymore. Lu Qingyi paused for a moment before speaking slowly. Ahem, what I mean is, besides second sister, there are also. Lu Qingyi's breath hitched when she heard this. For a moment, she was so angry that she didn't know what to say. She didn't know whether she should praise Gu Junqing for being honest, or curse him for being a scumbag. You mean that while you were dating second sister, you were seeing other people, and now you want to be with me too? Lu Qingyi recovered her composure. She stared at Gu Junqing's face, the anger in her chest surging rapidly. She knew it. She knew this bastard was a scumbag. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with you putting it that way. Gu Junqing touched his nose and muttered somewhat awkwardly. Gu Junqing. Lu Qingyi was truly going to be angered to death by him. Lu Qingyi, the pop diva who never cracked her voice even after singing a dozen songs in a row, had her voice crack 3 times in just a few words. If she could, she really wanted to hack this bastard to pieces. She felt like a clown. When other couples got together, they sounded the triumphant song of happiness and victory. But she was like the opening gongs and drums of a circus. The moment the gong was struck, everyone would be amused by her. A best actress friend of hers in the entertainment circle once said that playing a clown was actually the most difficult role. Others who played clowns needed constant contemplation, careful thought, repeated practice, and meticulous observation of details. Yet she felt that all she needed to do now was open her eyes, and she would reach a peak of performance they could never touch. Why don't you ask me if what I said is true or false? Gu Junqing looked at Lu Qingyi's increasingly red face. He knew that she was currently like a gasoline barrel that would completely explode with the slightest spark, so he hurriedly tried to cool her down. True or false? Lu Qingyi paused slightly, looking at the wicked smile playing on Gu Junqing's lips as if he were laughing at her. This instantly eased the frantic anger in her heart. She knew it. Gu Junqing must be teasing her. Otherwise, who would voluntarily say they were two timing when they were about to get together? It was obviously impossible. Can you not do this? Lu Qingyi was still a little angry. However, thinking that this might just be Gu Junqing's way of flirting, her anger subsided. Of course it is false. Lu Qingyi snorted softly, turning her face away as she waited for Gu Junqing to coax her. Congratulations, you guessed wrong. This matter is actually true. Gu Junqing shrugged his shoulders. Lu Qingyi's vision went dark. She felt as if she had just seen a man in a bat suit telling her to go back to Gotham, while claiming he wouldn't hit her again. All right, that is enough. I will stop teasing you. Gu Junqing saw that the usually proud Lu Qingyi now had a sluggish expression, and knew his goal had been achieved. The other sisters among the 7 vaguely knew that there were many fish in his pond, but as long as Gu Junqing didn't bring it up, and the other girls didn't provoke them, they pretended not to know. After all, most of the women knew what kind of character Gu Junqing had from the very beginning. This was also because he rarely put on a deeply affectionate persona in front of the female leads. Therefore, the female leads did not have any expectations of a monogamous, lifelong relationship with him. But Lu Qingyi was different. She was a misandrist by nature, so it would be completely different if she suddenly discovered something later on. It was better for him to slowly and proactively reveal the bottom line to her now. Chapter 1070. Lu Qingyi did not know that her other younger sisters had long since gotten involved with Gu Junqing. To this point, the third sister only knew about the relationship between their second sister, Tianyan, and Gu Junqing. As for why they kept it from her, that was a decision the sisters had reached together. To win Lu Qingyi's heart, they could not approach her with too many ulterior motives. Even the plan to woo Lu Qingyi had been devised by the sisters who understood her best. What exactly do you mean by that? Does second sister know about this affair? Lu Qingyi took a deep breath to steady herself. Her bright eyes remained fixed on Gu Junqing's face, refusing to miss even the slightest flicker of emotion. Second sister really does know about this, and she has no objections. In fact, they have even met and get along quite well. Gu Junqing wanted to tease her, so he deliberately kept the details vague. He needed to provide some preventative inoculation. By scaring her with her 5th, 6th, and 7th sisters first, it would be easier for her to accept that Gu Junqing had other women outside their sisterhood later on. You mean to tell me that not only does second sister know you have mistresses out there, but she even gets along with them? Lu Qingyi's eyes widened in disbelief. She could not fathom how her second sister had accepted this so easily. Well summarized, but do not do it again. Gu Junqing muttered to himself. Ahem, how can you use such an ugly word? If second sister knew you called them mistresses, she would certainly beat you for it. Gu Junqing coughed softly to correct her. Beat me. It would be a miracle if she did not beat them to death. Gu Junqing, stop spouting nonsense. If you do not clarify who they are and explain exactly what is going on, I will not let this go. Lu Qingyi questioned him coldly. She knew her second sister liked, and perhaps even loved, this man. However, she could not believe her sister would be so lovesick to this extent. She might have been able to tolerate him having had other women, provided they never met. But her sister actually getting along with them was something she could not accept. This was something Lu Qingyi refused to believe, even in death. No woman was willing to share her man of her own free will. Sigh, no wonder everyone wanted to keep it from you. If they had told you from the start, things would have blown up. Gu Junqing sighed as he saw how agitated Lu Qingyi was. With so many fish in his pond, including several great white sharks, he had never encountered someone so difficult to handle. Everyone, keeping it from me. Explain yourself. Lu Qingyi frowned, looking at Gu Junqing with confusion. It is true that I have other women, that second sister knows, and that they get along well. But why have you not asked who these people are? Gu Junqing said helplessly. Status. What do you mean? Are their statuses so high that second sister fears them? Of course, I forgot you are the young master of the Gu family, so any woman who manages to hook up with you would certainly not have a low status. Lu Qingyi scoffed sarcastically. She really is a singer, managing to weave 5 or 6 inflections into a single sentence. Her sarcastic tone was enough to make one want to smack her. Gu Junqing muttered to himself. Chapter 1071. Status? What are you implying? Is it that those women have such high status that even second sister is wary of them? Right, I forgot. You are the young master of the Gu family. Any woman who manages to climb into your bed certainly would not have a low status. Neither I nor second sister would dare to reach so high. Lu Qingyi scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Enough. If you keep using that sarcastic tone, I will spank you. Gu Junqing said calmly. You dare to hit me? Gu Junqing, who gave you the nerve to strike me? Lu Qingyi said, her rage uncontrollable. I am your second sister's chosen husband, so why would I not have the right? Besides, third sister, have you not noticed? Your attitude toward me has been getting better and better. If it were you from half a month ago, how would you have reacted hearing this? Gu Junqing chuckled. He had already realized that Lu Qingyi had indeed changed quite a lot. At least half a month ago, if she had suddenly heard Gu Junqing say this, she would have been too arrogant to pay him any mind, and would have simply walked away. As the diva Lu, worshipped by millions on a high pedestal, why would she ever stop for a man who 2 times so many women? Even though she was currently scolding Gu Junqing and mocking him with sarcasm, she still had not left, or asked anyone to remove him. This perfectly demonstrated that Gu Junqing already held significant weight in her heart. So, the person who gave me the nerve is you, big sister Lu. Gu Junqing's words left Lu Qingyi frozen in place, as if struck by lightning. Only now did she realize that her jealous tone just moments ago was exactly like that of a neglected woman pining in her boudoir. Was she already in love with the man before her? Even if Gu Junqing had not cleared out the remnants of the dark castle, would she still have fallen for him? Lu Qingyi asked herself, her heart growing increasingly confused. Big sister Lu, am I right? Having said so much just now, is there even a shred of hatred for me in your heart? Gu Junqing stared at the stunningly beautiful, but bewildered Lu Qingyi and spoke again. His voice was not loud, but it seemed filled with a demonic quality. It seeped into her mind like an enchantment, echoing repeatedly. Hatred. Yes, she should hate him. If she did not hate him, then her years of androphobia would be nothing more than a joke. Lu Qingyi became more and more lost. Yet she found that even knowing Gu Junqing was a scumbag who was cheating with who knew how many women, she still could not summon any disgust for him. This felt inconceivable to Lu Qingyi, who was already full of prejudice against the opposite sex. No wonder that even after Gu Junqing personally swept away that trash, she had only felt gratitude and excitement toward him. It turned out she had unconsciously viewed his vengeance as something he was simply obligated to do for her. Once he had accomplished that, it was like the final straw falling on the cliff, completely shattering the barriers and prejudices in her heart. Lu Qingyi smiled bitterly to herself. Only now was she convinced that she might have truly fallen for Gu Junqing long ago. Even if that is the case, so what? That does not give you the right to bully and deceive me, Lu Qingyi said, her tone serious like never before. I have not deceived you. Gu Junqing let out a soft sigh of relief, seeing that Lu Qingyi seemed to have figured it out. As long as she had broken through that mental barrier on her own, that was more effective than anything else. Chapter 1072. I did not lie to you. Gu Junqing puffed out his chest and said righteously. You should ask around. I, Gu, never lie to anyone. Tisk. Lu Qingyi looked at Gu Junqing with a face full of disdain upon hearing this. Believing what a man says is worse than believing a sow can climb a tree. Moreover, this is not the first or second time Gu Junqing has lied to her. Ahem, sometimes you need a few white lies. But look, I did not even hide the fact that I have other women from you. Does that not show my sincerity? Gu Junqing rubbed his nose, his eyes drifting for a second. When you do certain things too often, even he occasionally feels guilty. I do not care if you lied to me or not. Anyway, everything from before is void, Lu Qingyi said indignantly. She had originally intended to agree to give things a try with Gu Junqing. Now that she knew about this matter, she wanted to go back on her word immediately. Just as Lu Qingyi and Gu Junqing were having a heated argument, Gu Junqing took the opportunity to try and talk her through it. The cross-dressing child of luck, Peng, showed up at the door again, intending to discuss something with Lu Qingyi. Peng did not know why, but he felt a sense of panic in his heart, and had a vague sense of foreboding. This feeling was just like something that belonged to him was being stolen by someone else. And this thing was extremely important to him. This was not the first time he had such a premonition. It was like a guidance from the void, and if he did not stop certain things now, he would definitely regret it. For him, besides his peerless cross-dressing system, Lu Qingyi was the most important person in his life. So he was impatient to see Lu Qingyi. Drink some water and wait a moment. Qingyi is currently meeting with an important guest, and will not see anyone right now. Lu Qingyi's manager, Ye Wanyu, handed a cup of water to Ye Peng and said with a smile. She looked at Ye Peng, but her eyes flickered occasionally. She did not know why Gu Junqing had given such an order, but she was no fool. Everyone in their studio had already spread the word about how Gu Junqing and Lu Qingyi were constantly flirting with each other. Once, a junior employee at the studio accidentally burst in. They were shocked to find Gu Junqing pinning Lu Qingyi down, with her legs hoisted onto his shoulders. If they had not been fully clothed at the time, the employee would have assumed they were doing something unspeakable. Since then, no one dared to disturb Gu Junqing and Lu Qingyi when they were alone together. When Gu Junqing went to find Lu Qingyi today, he specifically gave instructions to stop anyone who came looking for her so they would not be disturbed. That was why she deliberately stopped Ye Peng. For Ye Wanyu, Lu Qingyi's orders were paramount. She had been with Lu Qingyi for about 10 years, and they had a deep relationship. Yet, she had never seen any man get as close to her as Gu Junqing. This also meant that Gu Junqing becoming Lu Qingyi's man was already a done deal. Naturally, she listened to Gu Junqing's words. Meeting a guest. What guest? Is it a man or a woman? Ye Wanyu's words did not ease the sense of foreboding and panic in Ye Peng's heart. Instead, it intensified, and his heart rate began to accelerate. Miss Ye, whoever Lu Ji is talking with, it seems to have nothing to do with you. You should just wait here. Ye Wanyu looked at Ye Peng and said with a flat expression, I cannot wait. Chapter 1073. I cannot wait. I have to see Lu Qingyi right now. Ye Peng shouted instinctively, his expression twisted in anxiety. He did not know why he was so impatient, fidgeting and feeling his heart race. This feeling had actually occurred not long ago. The last time he felt this flustered and went to find Lu Qingyi, he had discovered Gu Junqing chatting with her. That sense of panic only vanished after he found her. This was an unprecedented level of panic, far more severe than the last time. He suspected that something must have happened on Lu Qingyi's end again. This guess made Ye Peng unable to sit still for even a moment. Ye Peng's shout drew the attention of the others in the studio. They began to whisper amongst themselves, unsure of what was happening. Why are you shouting? Do you know where this place is? Ye Wanyu frowned, signaling to the people outside that everything was fine, before turning her gaze to the beautiful woman standing before her. Although she felt Ye Peng's features were slightly strange, she had to admit they were striking. Whether it was his jawline or face, although the lines were somewhat masculine, many peerless beauties possessed such characteristics. If handled well, this added a touch of heroism to feminine softness, increasing one's unique charm and recognizability. Good looks, a good voice, and the songs he created were also widely sung. Coupled with the fact that he was already a major internet celebrity, he naturally brought his own popularity. He was far better off than those newcomers just starting in the entertainment industry. Therefore, she was actually quite optimistic about Ye Peng's future career development. With just a little more exposure, he could surely become a huge success. Even if he did not reach the level of Lu Qingyi, the queen of music, he would not be too far off. If she did not want to stick solely to Lu Qingyi, she would not mind managing him. However, since Lu Qingyi and Gu Junqing seemed to have other plans for Ye Peng, she could not be bothered to get involved. Seeing him so anxious now, to the point of losing his composure, disappointed her slightly. This lowered Ye Peng's standing in her eyes. A strong mindset is one of the important factors for surviving in the entertainment industry. If this were a press conference, Ye Peng's breakdown would have been enough to make the headlines. I am sorry, I was reckless, Ye Peng said reluctantly, calming down after seeing her expression darken. He knew that being impatient was useless. Why are you so anxious to see Lu Ji? If it is something trivial, I can help you, Ye Wanyu said coolly, seeing his sincere apology. She knew that Lu Qingyi seemed to value Ye Peng, and even viewed him as a potential successor, so she maintained a professional attitude with a hint of guidance. It is all right, I can wait here. You go ahead and get busy, Sister Wanyu. Ye Peng forced a smile. He estimated that only seeing Lu Qingyi would alleviate the panic in his heart. However, given his relatively low status, he could not force his way into her private space. He decided to send Ye Wanyu away, and then search for Lu Qingyi on his own. I am not busy now. I will keep you company here. Do not worry, Lu Ji will definitely inform me as soon as she finishes her business. Ye Wanyu's expression flickered for a moment. She sat down on the sofa next to Ye Peng, and began looking at a report on her phone. With Lu Qingyi's concert approaching, she, as the manager, had to oversee everything. If not for Gu Junqing's instructions, she would not be sitting there keeping watch. Ye Peng fell silent, his frustration mounting. Seeing this, Ye Peng could only suppress his urgent desire to find Lu Qingyi. He kept a neutral expression and stared at his phone as well. He knew that Ye Wanyu would not let him pass, and was simply keeping an eye on him. He did not believe she could watch him forever. Chapter 1074. Elsewhere, Lu Qingyi remained unaware that Ye Peng was looking for her. She was still bickering with Gu Junqing about their relationship, firmly believing that he was a scumbag. He had not only deceived her, but also trifled with her second sister's feelings. She refused to believe that her accomplished sister would ever get along with the other women in this man's life. If you do not believe me, go ask her yourself. I am telling the truth. Gu Junqing shrugged at her questioning and laughed softly. She is on a mission and cannot be reached by phone. If I could ask her, I would not be wasting my breath on you. Lu Qingyi glared with furrowed brows and tightly pursed lips, furious. It had been a long time since her emotions had fluctuated this much. This matter involved not just her, but her sister as well. To her, fame and status were meaningless. Compared to the bond between the 7 sisters, those things held no weight. She decided to put things on hold with Gu Junqing. She needed to take a long, hard look at this jerk who was cheating on so many people. Her sister was a perfect woman, beautiful, talented, and kind. Yet, this man was still greedy for more. He was just a little rich and handsome. What else did he have besides that? Lu Qingyi's resentment and jealousy grew, and she struggled to keep her composure. Void. I did not expect the famous Queen Lu to be such a liar, reneging on her own promises. Gu Junqing feigned surprise. You have the nerve to call me a liar? Lu Qingyi was so angry she almost laughed. How am I not? Just then, Gu Junqing's expression shifted. Ever since reaching the foundation establishment stage, his senses and body had been greatly enhanced. He easily noticed the commotion outside the room. The large villa was divided into 2 sections. One was a public area where her staff worked, while the other was her private living quarters. Whether she was practicing songs or sleeping, she stayed here. The setup was private and quiet, ensuring no paparazzi could sneak in for photos. This was why Lu Qingyi was so happy after Gu Junqing found this villa. It was exactly what she wanted. The disturbance Gu Junqing sensed was in the reception room between the office and the living quarters, where Peng and Wanyu were waiting. Someone really came. I wonder if it is Tianyan or that cross-dressing expert Peng. Gu Junqing thought to himself. He had come to confront Lu Qingyi, and there was a high chance of success. Regardless of whether it was Tianyan or Peng, their luck would surely alert them. He was 80% sure someone would come to interrupt him. He had instructed the staff to stop anyone from bothering them. It was easy to guess who was in the reception room. Given Tianyan's arrogance and ability, he would have stormed in immediately if he sensed danger. Thus, the person waiting obediently outside was likely that cross-dressing expert Peng. He dared to disturb his good time. Gu Junqing snorted coldly, his patience for this protagonist wearing thin. He had planned to use the crossdresser to seduce Tianyan and farm his aura. However, Tianyan stopped yielding protagonist aura after the initial encounter. He seemed to have realized that besides his 7 sisters, other women did not matter. Tianyan had likely woken up, realizing that his sisters were the only ones who mattered. Since he could no longer exploit Tianyan, Peng was useless. The crossdresser was not a significant threat on the surface, as his combat ability was extremely low. In reality, he was more dangerous than an average protagonist. Thanks to his perverse cross-dressing skills, one could not distinguish his gender without physical contact. With that skill, it was too easy for him to take advantage of heroines. If Gu Junqing had not ordered 24-hour surveillance on him, he would not have let him live this long. What are you talking about? Why are you spacing out? Speak. Lu Qingyi interrupted impatiently as Gu Junqing stared blankly for a second. Her mood was terrible. She had genuinely intended to try things out with Gu Junqing. It was partly to alleviate her sister's guilt, and partly for herself. She wanted to know what falling in love felt like. But the current situation made it impossible for her to make such a decision. It is nothing. Gu Junqing replied helplessly. Peng's arrival dampened his desire to tease Lu Qingyi further. He needed to seize the moment before this opportunity slipped away. If it is nothing, then we are done. Goodbye. Actually, never see you again. Go see your other flings. She tried to speak, but her words were cut short. Gu Junqing's dismissive attitude infuriated her further. While she was raging, he suddenly pushed her against the wall, pinned her arms, and kissed her, biting her lips. So what if it is cheesy, as long as it works? Gu Junqing muttered to himself. With Peng nearby, he did not have time to beat around the bush or engage in long discussions. He had to make it clear that she could not live without him. Lu Qingyi was startled but immediately began to struggle. Her eyes widened as she glared at Gu Junqing, doing her best to break free from his hold. She knew she was physically no match for him. Despite using all her strength, she could not escape, and she cursed him internally. Soon, she could not even think of curses. Gu Junqing was as rough as a beast, as if he wanted to fuse her body into his own. This was not the first time he had kissed her forcefully. Knowing this jerk's behavior, she had no way to counter him, as she could not beat, scold, or force him away. She considered inciting her fans to attack this scumbag online. However, given Gu Junqing's family status, it would be effortless for him to suppress that news. He had just killed so many people yet remained untouched, even finding time to harass her here. She realized she was truly helpless against this bastard. Their difference in power was too great, a realization that left her dejected. Usually, when a man forces a kiss on a woman, she feels shy and afraid. If a woman dislikes the man, or does not want it, she will resist violently. That romantic idea of being kissed until one is dizzy and weak need hardly exists in reality. However, becoming dizzy from a kiss is scientifically possible. It is caused by excessive excitement, emotional changes, and increased heart rate, leading to insufficient oxygen to the brain. In short, she was simply deprived of oxygen. If it were a man she hated, a woman would not enjoy it, feeling instead of visceral, unbearable repulsion. Even with Gu Junking's looks, he rarely used this method. He only did so when he was sure the person had feelings for him. As for Lu Qingyi, if another man approached her, let alone kissed her, she would be unable to stand it. This was a form of post-traumatic stress, unlike the performative man-haters online. Those women do not hate men, just men who are not handsome or rich. As for Lu Qingyi, although she did not want to admit it, she did not actually hate Gu Junking's kisses. She realized that even after his rude and disrespectful behavior, she still could not hate him. This discovery left her feeling discouraged and confused. Even knowing he had other women, she could not hate him. Her mental preparation and resistance seemed like a waste of time. Oh well. Lu Qingyi sighed inwardly and let go of her stubbornness. She closed her starry eyes and stopped glaring. For the first time, she clumsily responded to his kiss, beginning to enjoy it. Gu Junqing felt her entire body soften, and a smile appeared in his eyes. Ding. The heroine responded to the host's kiss for the first time. Heroine luck stolen plus 500. Host villain luck plus 500. Ding. The heroine Lu Qingyi is falling for the host. Villain points plus 2,000. Ding. The heroine Lu Qingyi is falling for the host. Villain points plus 3,000. Ding. The heroine Lu Qingyi is falling for the host. Villain points plus 5,000. Gu Junqing did not pay attention to the prompts. After receiving her semi-active response, his hands moved from pinning her arms to caressing her graceful body. He lowered his head to kiss her neck and collarbone. Although his movements were rough, Lu Qingyi found herself liking this side of him. Perhaps due to her fans' adoration, she had become slightly proud and capricious. Gu Junqing's behavior, however, gave her the feeling that he was superior to her. Perhaps women are naturally drawn to and admire those stronger and better than themselves, and his actions struck that chord within her. Without boasting, she had never seen a man as outstanding as their group of 7 sisters. Each of them had reached the pinnacle of their respective fields, not to mention their unique and stunning beauty. When it came to a sense of conquest, Gu Junqing was the first man to make her feel this way. Go, break up with them, and I will let you kiss me however you want. Lu Qingyi mumbled as they were entwined. Gu Junqing kissed the corner of her eye, bit her earlobe, and whispered, okay. In the empty room, they stood against the wall kissing. This time, she really felt her entire body go limp from his touch. Her long, fair legs felt powerless, and she stood unsteadily. She wrapped her arms around his neck and rested her head on his shoulder. If not for a shred of shame, she would have jumped onto him and wrapped her legs around his strong waist, squeezing him until he could not breathe. You bastard, what else can you do besides bully people? Lu Qingyi managed to say viciously once he slowed down. It was not enough to just say it. She stood on her tiptoes and bit his neck fiercely. Why is there no mark after biting? She stared at his flawless skin in shock. She had intended to leave marks as revenge, but she could not break his skin. Even when she tried sucking to leave a hickey, nothing worked. She swore she had held nothing back. I might not have marks, but you do. I do not have to appear in public, but you seem unable to show your face now. Gu Junqing looked at the plum blossom-like marks on her neck, a sinister smile playing on his lips. Lu Qingyi was furious at his smug expression. Was what you said earlier true? Lu Qingyi asked, calming herself down. What did I just say? You said you would break up with those women. She replied expressionlessly. Did I say that? Gu Junqing blinked. You just said it and now you are denying it. She exploded in rage. If not for that promise, she would never have given in. Even if she knew he was lying, he could have at least pretended to believe it. Ahem, you said yourself that was a moment ago. What does that have to do with now? Gu Junqing muttered softly. Chapter 1075. Ahem, you said yourself that was a moment ago. What does that have to do with now? Gu Junqing muttered softly. You really are shameless. Lu Qingyi was truly too angry to speak further. Luckily, she had not held out much hope to begin with, but she was still left speechless by his shamelessness. Qingyi, you cannot live without me. Seeing her helpless expression, Gu Junqing chuckled softly. To resolve the guilt in your second sister's heart, you can only rely on me now. Besides, you do not hate me, do you? I will say it one more time. Go break up with those women right now, and I will agree immediately. Lu Qingyi's pretty face still had a faint blush after their lips had touched, and her eyes held a hint of stunning charm. She bit her red lips and said coldly. She knew that if she agreed to Gu Junqing, every problem could be resolved. Once her second sister knew that she had truly moved on from the past, her heart knot would surely dissipate completely. However, she remained very reluctant. The sisters were one thing, as they had grown up together, were as close as one body, and could even sacrifice their own lives for one another. Furthermore, her master had long ago calculated that they might marry the same man in the future. But this did not mean she could truly accept her man having women other than her sisters. You know that is impossible. If I abandoned them for you, perhaps one day I would abandon you for another woman. Although I, Gu Junqing, am a bit of a playboy, I do not wish to be a heartless man. Gu Junqing shook his head. Since I am not willing to lie to you and have explained everything clearly, you should understand that I am sincere. Why do you need so many women? Can you even handle sleeping with them all? If you can handle it, can your body hold up? You are not afraid of dying in a woman's bed, are you? You are not already completely drained, are you? Lu Qingyi eyed a certain part of Gu Junqing with disdain and said earnestly. Although she had not experienced that kind of thing between men and women, she had seen enough to know how it worked. News of mistresses cheating soliciting prostitutes, and group activities in the entertainment industry was endless. Whether I can handle it or not, shall we find a place tonight for a one-on-one? Gu Junqing raised an eyebrow and chuckled. Seeing Gu Junqing teasing her, Lu Qingyi rolled her eyes and sighed inwardly. She knew she could not persuade him, and as he had said, if Gu Junqing truly abandoned his other women to get her, what would happen if he met someone even more beautiful one day? Instead, his stubbornness made Lu Qingyi feel slightly disappointed but simultaneously relieved. Having seen the storms of the entertainment industry for so many years, she had long stopped believing in so-called true love. There were too many cases like this in the industry. Model couples who were praised by the public one day might be mired in cheating scandals the next. What she wanted was accountability. Actually, you do not have to make a decision so quickly. We can try getting along first. Seeing that Lu Qingyi was not responding, Gu Junqing knew she was still conflicted, so he suggested, try getting along? Lu Qingyi repeated, confused. Aren't we already fake boyfriend and girlfriend to the outside world? We agreed it was just for show, so let's make it more realistic. Let's act like a real couple. No restrictions on kissing, no restrictions on touch. Gu Junqing held up 2 fingers and emphasized the point. After spending time together, if you still mind, we can split up, and I will not stop you. I see. You just want to take advantage without taking responsibility. Lu Qingyi rolled her eyes at Gu Junqing. The thought turned in her mind, and after pondering it for a while, she realized it was a good idea. When she decided she did not want to continue, she could just leave without having to watch this jerk's expression. As for her second sister, as long as she relieved her guilt, she could just claim she and Gu Junqing were incompatible and broke up. Then she would no longer feel guilty about the past. Fine, but I still have those requirements. Until I am willing, you are not allowed to force things to the final step. Lu Qingyi knew she could not stop Gu Junqing with her own strength. The earlier forced kiss was proof enough. Under his level of strength, she had absolutely no power to resist. If Gu Junqing forced her and tried to sleep with her, she would have nowhere to cry. She could accept kissing and the like, but she could not accept the real thing. Of course, then I have a few more requirements. Seeing that Gu Junqing had agreed so cleanly, Lu Qingyi instinctively became vigilant and hurriedly began to make a few more demands. Meanwhile, while Gu Junqing and Lu Qingyi were discussing, Peng could no longer endure it. Just a moment ago, the unease in his heart had reached its peak. Even his peerless cross-dressing system sent out a warning at the same time. This made him gradually restless, and his expression became twisted. Fortunately, Yewanyu next to him seemed to be busy with something important and paid no attention to Peng's expressions and actions. Otherwise, she would have seen his increasingly vicious face. I have to find a way to leave first, otherwise she will not let me go find Lu Qingyi. Peng looked at the busy Yewanyu and thought to himself, sister, my stomach hurts a bit. I might need to go to the bathroom. Peng really did not want to endure the feeling of anxiety, so he clutched his stomach and looked at Yewanyu with an embarrassed expression. Go ahead. Yewanyu, who was busy handling concert affairs, frowned when she heard this, but she did not say anything and let Peng go without looking up. Peng was now half an employee of Lu Qingyi's studio, so he could go wherever he wanted, except for directly finding Lu Qingyi. After Peng came out, he acted as if nothing was wrong and took a detour. Once he was out of Yewanyu's sight, he secretly headed toward Lu Qingyi's rest area. He had been here several times before to discuss contracts, so it was not unfamiliar to him. And you are not allowed to. Just then, Peng heard a faint sound coming from Lu Qingyi's singing room, and knew that Lu Qingyi was inside. He tiptoed to the door of the singing room. The scene inside the door made him clench his fists and grit his teeth. He knew it. It was definitely that annoying guy Gu Junqing seducing his goddess again. Chapter 1076. In Peng's mind, Lu Qingyi was like a possession. Ever since he was affected by that strange virus, he could feel his own mindset and behavior becoming increasingly perverse and sinister. Yet, even as his body gradually feminized and he lost interest in women, his possessiveness toward Lu Qingyi remained extremely intense. The wild grass in his heart grew uncontrollably. This was the only persistence he had left as a man, fueled entirely by the desire to possess her. He believed he could win her over and bring her happiness. If Lu Qingyi were snatched away by another man, his only reason for holding on would vanish. According to his peerless cross-dressing system, his mind would not only become entirely female, but his body would change as well. He could not accept such an outcome. Being a cross-dresser was one thing, but if he lost his manhood and became a woman, he felt he might as well be dead. Therefore, when Peng saw Gu Junqing and Lu Qingyi acting intimately in the room, blood rushed to his head and his eyes turned red instantly. From his angle, they were sitting on the sofa gazing at each other. Lu Qingyi's dreamy eyes were fixed on the man's face as if he were the only thing in her world. Her lips moved slightly, and she seemed to be saying something. Gu Junqing also wore an indulgent expression, holding her small hand while gazing at her with deep affection. What were they doing? Was it necessary to be this intimate just to talk? Were they flirting? This thought made Peng so jealous he could go mad, wishing he could rush in and interrupt them immediately. Gu Junqing had long since discovered Peng pacing at the door. He deliberately made it look like they were sharing a tender gaze, looking at her with the gentle, doting eyes one might use for a girlfriend. Soon, the system notification arrived. The host's villain value increased by 5,000 as the protagonist Peng's mental state took a hit. Another notification followed. The host's villain value increased by 7,000 as Peng's mental state took further damage. Not bad, Junqing muttered to himself. What are you looking at? Do not think that just because you make a face like that, I will agree to you. Besides, kissing requires my consent. Lu Qingyi also felt the way Junqing was looking at her. After getting used to his harshness and mockery, seeing such gentleness made her look away unnaturally, afraid to meet his eyes. Her fair, delicate face flushed with a faint warmth, like a piece of translucent white porcelain, stained with a rosy hue. Junqing, however, said nothing and leaned his head closer. You are going to kiss me again. Hey, I said I needed to agree. Junqing. Watching his face draw closer, with an air of unquestionable dominance, Lu Qingyi felt her resolve weakening. Forget it, she had already kissed him so many times, one more would not matter. This is how women are. Lu Qingyi could not help but close her eyes, even biting her own moist lips as she waited for Junqing's affection. The system chimed in. The host's villain value increased by 10,000 as the protagonist Peng's mental state shattered. Another chime followed. The host's villain value increased by 20,000 points as the protagonist Peng's mental state collapsed. Peng watched with wide, bloodshot eyes as Junqing lowered his head slowly. What made him even more furious was that Lu Qingyi offered no resistance, appearing to accept it willingly. No, it must be that Junqing is forcing her, it has to be. The goddess could not possibly like such a man, she absolutely would not. Peng roared in his heart, his gaze fixed on Junqing like a venomous snake living in the abyss. Chapter 1077. Can he really hold back that much? I am about to kiss her, and he is still watching from outside. He really has the potential to be a green-haired turtle. Junqing looked at Lu Qingyi's cherry lips inches away, feeling a bit conflicted. He simply wanted to provoke the protagonist Peng, who was eavesdropping outside, to earn some villain points. He had no intention of putting on a show for Peng. However, seeing Lu Qingyi's long eyelashes trembling slightly, her delicate nose twitching, and her lips parted, still damp from the kiss they shared before Peng arrived, she looked even more enticing. It was clear she was ready. Junqing muttered to himself that not kissing her now would be quite unromantic. Still, looking at Lu Qingyi, who had just been acting tough about not wanting too much physical contact, but now looked completely submissive, Junqing found it somewhat amusing. He also verified his theory once again, that a spirited horse can be ridden repeatedly once you have tamed it for the first time. Why haven't you made a move yet? Lu Qingyi waited for a long time without feeling Junqing lean in. Driven by curiosity, she opened her eyes slightly and saw Junqing's face inches away, along with his smiling gaze. A flush of red immediately spread across her porcelain face. She realized Junqing was teasing her again. She felt both angry and anxious. Even though she was several years older than Junqing, and should theoretically be the one in control as the elder sister, she was always led around by the nose by this little brat. He toyed with her, yet he remained completely at ease. Lu Qingyi was self-aware enough to know that despite her worldly experience, she had never truly been in love. How could she be a match for this experienced scoundrel? Thinking about how many women must have trained this jerk, she refused to admit it, but a wave of resentment and jealousy surged in her heart. She reached out and pushed Junqing away, hitting him a few times. Their interaction felt just like a couple playfully bickering. This scene was clearly visible to Peng outside. He watched as Lu Qingyi hit Junqing, yet he could tell she was not using any real strength. It looked exactly like a young girl pretending to be mad at her boyfriend for teasing her, wanting revenge but unable to actually hurt him. The more Peng thought about it, the more his heart ached. If he had only liked Lu Qingyi as an idol before, he had truly fallen for her after meeting her a few times, completely captivated by her excellence, elegance, and radiant presence. Seeing her act as if she were genuinely with Junqing, a fire of jealousy threatened to consume him, and his heart felt like it was being twisted by a blade. Yet, for some reason, he felt a faint sense of satisfaction deep down. He felt as if he had projected himself into Junqing's position. If only Lu Qingyi would act spoiled toward him like that. Ding, the protagonist Peng's mentality has collapsed, rewarding the host with 10,000 villain points. Ding, the protagonist Peng's mentality has collapsed, rewarding the host with 20,000 villain points. Junqing was surprised. He wondered if Peng was still watching even after all that. Was he addicted to watching his goddess date someone else? By all logic, Peng should have stormed in to stop them by now. Junqing had not expected Peng to be a turtle, and perhaps a bright green one at that. Chapter 1078. Junqing likened Peng to a green-haired turtle, holding utter contempt for this child of luck in his heart. It is one thing for a man to wear women's clothing, or even to exhibit feminine traits. This phenomenon stems from shifting professional landscapes, hormonal changes, evolving aesthetics, and the prevalence of infantilization. It is a complex social reality that is hardly surprising. However, a man like Peng, who has fundamentally abandoned the responsibility expected of his gender, is unworthy of being his enemy. In the animal kingdom, males typically dominate because they secure territory, lead the pack, and provide resources through sexual selection. Most male creatures possess a territorial instinct. The larger the territory they control, the greater their leverage with females. If a female cannot offer a matching investment, she must lower her standards and accept the male's association with other females. This is a common biological reality that, for the most part, applies to humans as well. Therefore, while Junqing remained extremely cautious regarding this cross-dressing child of luck, he despised him deep down. Seeing Ye Peng standing outside the door, watching his own goddess behave intimately with another man without a reaction, only deepened that disdain. To Gu Junqing, this was a sign that Ye Peng's luck was leaking away, leaving him unable to control his own actions or thoughts. It was as if Ye Peng were clinging to a small tree on the edge of a dangerous cliff. Originally, the tree was full of energy and easily supported his weight. Now, as the tree's nutrients are drained, it is on the verge of snapping, and Ye Peng is about to plummet into the abyss. Naturally, Ye Peng still possessed a significant amount of luck left to be harvested, and Gu Junqing fully intended to exploit him until he was dry. "There is someone at the door, stop that," Gu Junqing said, grabbing Lu Qingyi's hand as she lashed out. Since this protagonist would not come out on his own, he would have to invite him in. Lu Qingyi was momentarily stunned by his words. She immediately straightened her clothes, composed herself, and returned to her usual indifferent demeanor. Her voice, clear as a silver bell, rang out, "Who is at the door? Come in." Ye Peng, standing outside, had been watching the playful scene between Lu Qingyi and Gu Junqing with bloodshot eyes. He was startled when he heard her call out. They had discovered him. He had no intention of hiding, anyway, and he had planned to interrupt them even if she had not called. Though the feeling of putting himself in Gu Junqing's shoes to imagine being intimate with Lu Qingyi was strange, it was not actually him. The bitterness, rage, and jealousy kept bubbling over in his heart. "It is me, Sister Lu." Ye Peng forced a smile, pushed open the door, and walked inside. "Why are you here?" "I recall you had training today," Lu Qingyi said. She felt a brief sense of relief when she saw a beautiful woman in a lotus pink gauze dress enter, only to realize who it was upon seeing the face. Even without looking at herself, she knew how luring she must have appeared just moments ago. She did not want others to have seen her like that. Since Ye Peng was the girlfriend of her eighth brother, Tianyan, and an artist she personally wanted to cultivate, she did not consider him an outsider. Chapter 1079. Why are you here? I recall you had training today. Seeing Ye Peng peeking from outside the door, Lu Qingyi let out a sigh of relief before asking curiously. "I was just exhausted from training, so I wanted to come and see you, Sister Lu." Ye Peng forced a smile as he spoke. Deep down, he was seething with rage. If he hadn't come, would she have ended up in bed with that man? Ahem, when did you arrive? Lu Qingyi coughed once, casting a fleeting glance at Gu Junqing, who was standing to the side, and asked as if it were a casual remark. Her entire attention had been focused on Gu Junqing, so she had naturally failed to notice when Ye Peng arrived, or how much he had witnessed. She began to feel a sliver of annoyance toward Gu Junqing at that moment. While she did not know the exact level of Gu Junqing's martial prowess, his sensory perception was surely sharp enough to detect someone approaching them easily. He must have known someone was spying at the door, yet he chose to wait until she had already lost face before mentioning it. How could he be so wicked? Lu Qingyi gritted her teeth in private. "I just arrived and was looking for you when I heard young Master Gu call out to me." Sensing that Lu Qingyi's expression was off, Ye Peng dared not admit how long he had been standing there. He desperately wanted to confront her and demand to know what kind of relationship she had with Gu Junqing. A short while ago, Lu Qingyi had clearly acted as if she detested the man, yet now the atmosphere between them was undeniably different. Ye Peng's eyes suddenly locked onto Lu Qingyi's fair, slender neck, where a suspicious, ambiguous red mark was clearly visible. The sight instantly rendered him speechless, choking off any words he might have uttered. A long-forgotten surge of violent impulse welled up from the depths of his heart, only to sink back down just as quickly. All that remained inside him was self-pity, disappointment, and jealousy. They have actually reached this stage. Do I really have no chance left? Ye Peng laughed bitterly in his mind. Lu Qingyi also noticed Ye Peng staring fixedly at her neck. She was surprised at first, but then remembered that Gu Junqing had been sucking on her neck earlier, likely leaving a hickey behind. "What is it? Did I get a rash? There was a mosquito just now, and I was wondering why it was so itchy." Lu Qingyi spoke up quickly. She did not want to publicize her affair with Gu Junqing just yet, especially not to Ye Peng. In her heart, she still regarded Ye Peng as the boyfriend of her younger sister, Tianyan. From what she understood from her sisters, Gu Junqing and Tianyan were far from friendly. They were more like fire and water. If she revealed her relationship with Gu Junqing, those two would surely fight to the death. Am I right? Lu Qingyi glared at the smiling Gu Junqing beside her, emphasizing every word. Quite right, and that mosquito had a rather thick stinger too, Gu Junqing replied with a straight face. Gu Junqing, do you want to die? Unable to hold back, Lu Qingyi struck him in a fit of rage. Ye Peng's forced smile vanished completely, and the bitterness in his heart began to overflow. Catching a glimpse of Ye Peng's expressionless face out of the corner of her eye, Lu Qingyi quickly reined herself in to avoid further exposure. She realized that her behavior toward Gu Junqing had been somewhat too intimate. "How has your training been going lately?" She adjusted her posture and asked with a serious expression. Between the many things happening with Gu Junqing recently, and the fact that she had handed Ye Peng over to Gu Junqing's company for development, she had little energy left to keep track of him. Chapter 1080. How has your training been going recently? Lu Qingyi's concern almost moved Ye Peng to tears. He had come to find Lu Qingyi today partly due to the system's guidance, and partly due to an inexplicable intuition. However, a portion of it was also for other reasons. "I haven't been training lately. The posture and vocal coaches that young Master Gu hired for me were men, and I didn't think they were good people, so I didn't dare go to training. Peng glanced at Gu Junqing, hesitated for a moment, and then deliberately put on a cowardly and aggrieved expression in front of Lu Qingyi. Having dressed in a delicate and haggard woman's outfit today, Peng appeared even more frail and vulnerable. As an artist, or rather, someone striving to become an exceptional artist, a strict plan is required. Everything from diet and lifestyle to social interactions needs rigorous control. Singers, in particular, require excellent management of their diet, daily life, posture, and vocal cords. Initially, Lu Qingyi had intended to train Peng herself, but after Gu Junqing said he would send people to train her, she stopped interfering. After all, Gu Junqing owned Anran Entertainment. Given the capital status of Anran Entertainment in the entertainment industry, no one they intended to promote had ever failed to become a star. There should naturally be no issues regarding artist management. Moreover, even though Gu Junqing and Dao Tianyan were at odds, and Peng was Dao Tianyan's girlfriend, she did not believe Gu Junqing would target a little girl like Peng. Therefore, she had felt at ease letting Gu Junqing handle Peng's training. But now, Peng had come to complain that the teachers Gu Junqing sent were problematic. Lu Qingyi's eyes immediately shifted to Gu Junqing. Although she did not believe Gu Junqing was the type to lack such composure, Peng had come to report this personally, and she did not look like she was lying. She had to provide Peng with an explanation. What is going on here? Lu Qingyi asked. Gu Junqing noticed that Lu Qingyi was merely inquiring, and her tone was extremely gentle, as if she just wanted an explanation. He realized that most of Lu Qingyi's heart was indeed truly with him. This filled Gu Junqing with a sense of joy. Peng was, after all, someone Lu Qingyi considered her successor. She naturally cared very much about Peng's growth. If this were in the past, upon learning that Peng had not received proper management or education, Lu Qingyi likely would have started questioning him sharply. The fact that she was now merely seeking a reason showed just how much she had changed. I was actually wondering the same thing myself. I dispatched the best teachers from our Anran Entertainment, yet my subordinates reported that Miss Ye refused to attend class after seeing the teachers just once. Gu Junqing looked at Peng with interest as he posed the question. The best teachers? That teacher was not only burly with a full, thick beard, but he also constantly wore a lewd grin. The moment I saw him, I felt as if my body had been violated by his gaze. After that, I didn't dare to attend class again. Sister Lu, you know how our industry is. If the teacher is of the opposite sex, you can imagine what might happen. Peng knew this was a chance to lower Gu Junqing's standing in Lu Qingyi's heart. He spoke with such grievance that a few tears even fell, as if he were exposing the injustice others had inflicted upon him. Chapter 1081. Peng knew that separating Lu Qingyi and Gu Junqing was difficult, but no wall was impenetrable to a determined enough person. He believed that by sowing seeds of doubt little by little, he would eventually drive them apart. He wondered why Gu Junqing had to snatch Lu Qingyi away, when he already had so many beautiful women around him. Peng had been keeping a close watch on their relationship, constantly visiting Lu Qingyi just to prevent them from having any alone time. Yet, Gu Junqing had still managed to work around him, which filled Peng with resentment. He leaned in and said, Sister Lu, you know how our industry works. If a male instructor handles body training, things can get complicated. Lu Qingyi nodded in agreement. She understood the situation perfectly. Female artists needed fitness training to maintain their figures, but doing it improperly could lead to injuries. This necessitated professional guidance from a body coach. However, everyone understood the risks of hiring a male instructor, as the chances of inappropriate incidents were far too high. Furthermore, a female instructor would have a much better personal understanding of how to sculpt and tone a woman's body. Hardly any artist would hire a man for this unless they had ulterior motives. This train of thought naturally led Lu Qingyi to look toward Gu Junqing. She did not believe Gu Junqing was ignorant of these professional norms. Still, she did not immediately suspect him, assuming perhaps his subordinates had simply made a poor arrangement. Are you going to issue some orders about this? Ye Mingming was someone I sent over, and I can accept that Gu Yuran might give her a hard time, but isn't this going a bit too far? Lu Qingyi frowned and spoke to Gu Junqing with visible annoyance. She was not angry at Gu Junqing himself, but rather directed her frustration toward the president of Anran Entertainment, Gu Yuran. Peng, with reddened eyes and a sniffle, looked toward the window as if struggling to hold back tears. Sister Lu, please don't be angry with young Master Gu. I don't want you to ruin your relationship because of me, and I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose, he said with an air of grievance. Gu Junqing stood to the side, feeling speechless at Lu Qingyi's performance. He finally understood why the peerless cross-dressing system had chosen Peng. Watching a grown man master such affected, feminine artifice, the overwhelming scent of a green tea persona was genuinely nauseating. Lu Qingyi was the type to respond to soft tactics rather than force. Seeing Peng on the verge of tears, she assumed he had been treated terribly by Gu Yuran, which felt like a personal slap in the face to her. Her anger flared, and her expression darkened. She even considered having Peng quit his position. Since Gu Yuran was ignoring Gu Junqing's instructions to intentionally make things difficult for Peng, there was no reason for him to stay. Go ahead, be angry, Peng thought, and it would be even better if you get angry at this bastard in front of you too. Seeing the rage on Lu Qingyi's face, Peng felt a surge of satisfaction. He believed his scheme was succeeding. He figured that someone like Gu Junqing, born into wealth and status, would have a bad temper, and would never lower himself to explain such trivial details. It was just like in a romance novel, where the protagonists never communicated, allowing their misunderstandings to grow deeper. Peng was determined to become the obstacle in their path and make their lives miserable. Chapter 1082. Peng's plan was sound. He knew his standing in Lu Qingyi's heart was far behind Gu Junqing's. He had no intention of confronting Gu Junqing openly. Since he couldn't outmatch him in any aspect, he relied on his identity as a woman, a persona he maintained through cross-dressing. This identity offered him immense leverage. As an artist under Gu Junqing's company, he could fabricate stories on the internet, accusing Gu Junqing of sexual harassment and coercion. He could easily recruit others to echo his claims online. As the perceived underdog, even baseless evidence would attract countless supporters. He would conclude his narrative by claiming he had fallen into a deep depression following the abuse. He already possessed a substantial following online, and coupled with the inherent advantages of public opinion, he could cause a massive sensation. Even with Gu Junqing's vast wealth and power, suppressing such a firestorm would be impossible. He would never be able to silence everyone once the public was riled up. If Gu Junqing's reputation were ruined, Lu Qingyi would certainly be forced to reconsider her relationship with him. He could even manipulate his boyfriend, Tianyan, to deal with Gu Junqing. Most importantly, even if people suspected someone was stirring the pot, no one would trace it back to him. They certainly wouldn't guess that his true motive was to win over Lu Qingyi. Peng watched the strange atmosphere between the two, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. He thought to himself that Gu Junqing should not blame him. He never wanted to be an enemy, but it was Gu Junqing's own fault for having so many women, and yet still trying to steal Lu Qingyi away. For now, he would sit back and watch to see if the two of them would fall into a misunderstanding. Perhaps you should ask Gu Yuren to find Peng a new instructor, or I can find someone myself. Lu Qingyi hesitated for a moment before speaking slowly to Gu Junqing. She did not blame Gu Junqing, but she felt that Peng was a genuine talent. She didn't want to see his future ruined simply because of her conflict with Gu Yuren, the CEO of Anran Entertainment. Furthermore, she didn't truly believe Gu Yuren was the type to target subordinates just because of their personal rivalry. They had been enemies for a long time, and she understood the other woman's character well. Gu Yuren's methods were too sophisticated to resort to such blatant targeting. She suspected there might be a significant misunderstanding involved. However, since Peng had been so adamant, she found it difficult to say anything more. Gu Junqing was pleased to see that Lu Qingyi remained level-headed and had not allowed her emotions to cloud her judgment. He knew this was only because he was present. Had he not been there, Lu Qingyi might have been influenced by Peng's protagonist aura, causing her to act impulsively. After all, Peng was someone she had personally sent there. If he were being so openly targeted, it would be a direct slap in her face, and in a moment of passion, she might have clashed with his people. Her current calm suggested she had not been affected by the protagonist's influence. By asking him if he wanted to switch instructors, she was clearly trying to save face for Peng while he was still present. There is no need to change anyone, and this matter has nothing to do with Gu Yuren, Gu Junqing said with a faint smile after glancing at Peng. Lu Qingyi frowned slightly. If it has nothing to do with her, why was a male instructor assigned to Peng? Such an event within the industry was clearly a sign of targeting. Gu Junqing smiled as he replied, "It has nothing to do with her, because I am the one who personally selected this instructor for him." Chapter 1083. Because I personally selected his current coach, Gu Junqing said with a smile. As soon as his words landed, Peng first displayed an expression of disbelief, which then shifted into a look of grievance and pity. He even forced 2 tears to hang from the corners of his eyes. His acting skills had reached their peak. "Young Master Gu, I don't recall offending you in any way. Why are you targeting me like this, just because I am Dao Tianyan's girlfriend?" Peng said aggrievely. In his heart, however, he was absolutely thrilled. He had been worrying about how to shift the fire onto Gu Junqing, and he never expected the man to admit it himself. He did not care to overthink why Gu Junqing would do such a thing. He knew Dao Tianyan was Lu Qingyi's 8th younger brother, and surely, he occupied some position in her heart. He was not entirely clear on who ranked higher between himself and Gu Junqing. As long as he could steer the conflict toward Gu Junqing and Dao Tianyan, there would be no problems. Lu Qingyi's brows twitched slightly upon hearing this. It was clear that she felt Gu Junqing's arrangement might truly be targeting Dao Tianyan. After all, Peng was the girlfriend Dao Tianyan had personally brought back and acknowledged. Lu Qingyi felt a bit hesitant and troubled. Peng was her younger brother's partner, and Dao Tianyan had pleaded with her repeatedly to take good care of her. She could not understand why Gu Junqing would target a woman. She did not believe Gu Junqing was the type to attack a person's family or loved ones simply because he could not deal with the person directly. "Why don't you?" Lu Qingyi hesitated repeatedly before finally speaking to Gu Junqing. She felt she would have a hard time answering to her 8th brother if she did not take good care of Peng, so she thought it would be better for Peng to return to her studio. Her relationship with Gu Junqing was ambiguous, so she did not think he would refuse her request. "Qingyi, do you trust me?" Gu Junqing interrupted her, his expression suddenly becoming serious. "Qingyi?" They were already on such intimate terms, calling each other by their names. Peng nearly ground his teeth in frustration upon hearing this. "Of course I trust you." Lu Qingyi was slightly stunned, then gave Gu Junqing a chiding look. Although she had some doubts about his personal character, she still believed him when he spoke with such sincerity. At the very least, he had essentially fulfilled every promise he made to her. When he said he would eliminate her psychological trauma, he had immediately gone and physically eliminated it. The teacher I hired for him, you should know him too. Gu Junqing chuckled, then pointed at Ye Peng. I know him. Who is it? Lu Qingyi asked, slightly startled. Yan Lun. So it was him. Gu Junqing's words made a look of sudden realization cross Lu Qingyi's face, and she no longer had any objections to the teacher he had hired. Who is Yan Lun? Ye Peng frowned. He did not know much about the entertainment industry, and the only star he had ever followed was Lu Qingyi. In his eyes, the current entertainment world was filled with nothing but trash. Whether it was talent or his face after cross-dressing, he was enough to completely crush this crowd. After all, he was the owner of the peerless cross-dressing system. Only Lu Qingyi's excellent talent could hold his attention. Well, although your teacher is not very handsome, he has extensive influence and popularity in the acting world. He once had millions of fans and holds many resources, and almost every artist he leads becomes incredibly famous. It is better for him to instruct you than for me to do it. Lu Qingyi looked at Ye Peng and explained it herself. But even if he has many fans, he is still a man. I am afraid he might have lecherous intentions toward me. Ye Peng grew anxious when he saw Lu Qingyi had no objections. You don't need to worry about that. There is one more thing I haven't told you. He announced to the media a long time ago that he is, well, gay. Chapter 1084. You don't need to worry about that. There is one more thing I haven't told you. He announced to the media a long time ago that he is, well, gay. Gay? You mean a homosexual? Upon hearing this, Ye Peng was stunned for a moment, and then his expression changed drastically. Seeing that Ye Peng's expression was off, Lu Qingyi guessed that he might have a negative view of homosexuals. However, she found this understandable, as it was human nature. In fact, she didn't find it disgusting. Being gay isn't repulsive, as long as it is legal, and doesn't violate moral principles. It is simply a personal choice, and any such choice is normal. Furthermore, there are actually quite a lot of people like that in the entertainment industry. Regardless of whether they are male or female, many well-known celebrities are secretly gay. With her status in the industry, it is incredibly easy for her to learn about many of the circle's secrets. Having learned so much, she has become accustomed to it. As long as they do not violate morality or break the law, she doesn't concern herself with it. Seeing Ye Peng's strong reaction now, she attributed it mostly to this being the first time he had heard of such things. Therefore, she offered a word of comfort. Don't worry, this situation is actually quite common in the industry. You won't need to feel strange about it in the future. I know. Ye Peng forced a smile. His desire to reject this teacher was even stronger now. In any case, he couldn't actually let some teacher instruct him at such close quarters. After all, although no one could tell he was cross-dressing, the male characteristics of his body could not all be feminized. Even though there had been some changes due to the influence of that strange genetic virus, such as his Adam's apple slowly shrinking, and his chest slightly bulging with a tiny arc, he hadn't fully transformed yet. If someone were to observe or touch him at close range, there was a high possibility they would discover he was a man in disguise. Originally, he had only intended to use this excuse as a springboard to sow discord between Gu Junqing and Lu Qingyi. Now that he saw this teacher was highly capable and posed no threat to him, he realized this excuse would likely fail to damage their relationship. Therefore, Ye Peng hurriedly declined. Sister Lu, I might just not be used to this yet. Can I refuse this guidance? I can actually learn on my own. No. You have just entered this industry, and you need someone to guide you. Eventually, you will even need to build your own team, including agents, assistants, choreographers, music producers, recording engineers, publicity staff, and so on. Lu Qingyi instructed him. But. Ye Peng was so anxious that he was covered in cold sweat. He understood the logic, and he knew that Lu Qingyi had his best interests at heart. But he really didn't want any teacher. You don't need to worry about that teacher. Although I don't know the teacher Gu Junqing found for you, he actually has quite a reputation in the industry. His students can be said to be spread throughout the entertainment world, and he has even earned the title of the godfather of Xia language music. He has a significant voice in the music circle. Normally, he no longer teaches students who are just starting out like you. Being able to meet this teacher is considered a stroke of luck, which shows that someone is quite attentive toward you. Lu Qingyi glanced at Gu Junqing, who was standing to the side, and spoke with a pointed tone. She had initially felt that Gu Junqing was targeting Ye Peng, and deliberately trying to trip him up. Now it seemed he really was targeting Ye Peng, but the motive remained unknown. Chapter 1085. Generally speaking, he no longer teaches students who have just debuted like you. It is quite lucky that you were able to meet this teacher, which goes to show that someone is truly attentive to your development. Can I decline this luck? Ye Peng felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. What kind of teacher could teach better than his system? If he needs a voice, the system can directly alter it, and if he needs a physique, he can purchase items, like body sculpting pills from the system. Even difficult skills like singing, songwriter, and music theory can be handled for him by the system. Where would he still need to train and learn so arduously? It can be said that he was born to thrive in this industry. Relying on his system, it is incredibly easy for him to do well in the entertainment circle. If it were not to get close to Lu Qingyi and win her over, he would not even need to join her studio. Rest assured, if you were a man, I truly would not feel comfortable letting him teach you, as his orientation is well known throughout the entertainment circle. Lu Qingyi's eyes curved slightly as she made a joke, then she continued seriously. But since you are a woman, you absolutely do not need to worry about him doing anything to you. That teacher has taught many outstanding female students, and a friend of mine is one of them. He has a great reputation, his professional skills are excellent, and his connections in the entertainment circle are even wider than mine. I am fucking a man. Peng felt stifled in his heart. He even wanted to announce his gender directly, but he knew that if he did, he would likely never be able to win Lu Qingyi over in his lifetime. What are you still hesitating for? Seeing Peng hesitating and remaining silent, Lu Qingyi sighed softly in her heart. From her perspective, although Peng's teacher, Yin Lun, has a different orientation and is not particularly good-looking, one should not look at him with strange eyes. Moreover, she believes this is a perfect opportunity for Peng. It would be a great pity if Peng did not seize it well. I will go and attend the lessons properly. Seeing Lu Qingyi's eager and expectant gaze, Peng wanted to say something, but could not bring himself to do so. After a bitter laugh in his heart, he still agreed. He knew Lu Qingyi cared deeply about his growth, and he could not bring himself to let her down now. Good. Lu Qingyi nodded with satisfaction. Her gaze could not help but drift toward Junqing, who was looking at Peng with a strange expression, and her brows furrowed slightly as she felt a bit puzzled. However, she could not demand an explanation from him right now. By the way, you should properly thank Junqing. Even I might not have been able to invite such a good teacher, so it must have cost him quite a bit. Lu Qingyi pointed at Junqing and said calmly, I still have to thank him? Not only did he meddle in my business to find me some teacher, but he also fucking molested you. Peng felt as if he were about to vomit blood. He had the feeling that his crush was being taken by Junqing, and not only could he not be angry, but he also had to thank Junqing for taking her well. Yet, he dared not and could not fall out with Junqing right now. His desire to make Junqing fall for him under his cross-dressing persona had completely vanished. In his heart, he desperately wanted to trample Junqing under his feet, and make Lu Qingyi truly choose who the man worthy of her was. But this could only remain a fantasy of his. Right now, let alone trampling Junqing under his feet, if he were to accidentally expose his true identity, he would likely face total ruin. Young Master Gu, you have helped me so many times that I don't know how to thank you. Whatever you want me to do, I will agree to it. Peng deliberately put on an appearance of admiration and gratitude. Chapter 1086. Young Master Gu, you have helped me so many times, and I truly do not know how to thank you. I will agree to whatever you ask of me. Peng looked at Junqing with a flushed, bashful face, making her feelings clear to anyone watching. Lu Qingyi's eyes deepened at the sight. She glanced between Junqing and Peng, but remained silent for a moment. She wondered why things felt so strange, as Junqing was hardly known for being such a charitable person. When she asked Junqing to do things, he would agree readily, but he would usually demand some form of compensation afterward. Yet, Junqing had somehow found Peng such an excellent teacher. He did not seem to have any intention of asking Peng for compensation. Or perhaps he had already asked for it, and she simply did not know. Even though Junqing had been inseparable from her lately, he had still left her side at night, or whenever he had things to take care of. She had no idea what he had been doing, and it was entirely possible he had been in private contact with Peng. Could there be an illicit affair between the two of them? Peng was, after all, the recognized girlfriend of her eighth brother, Tianyan. Was Junqing planning to cuckold Tianyan? The moment that thought crossed her mind, Lu Qingyi found it difficult to sit still. She could not allow Peng and Junqing to continue like this. Junqing, standing to the side, did not notice what Lu Qingyi was thinking. He was currently thoroughly disgusted by Peng's behavior. Just as he was about to speak, Lu Qingyi stood up hurriedly and said to Peng, that is enough. Since the misunderstanding has been cleared up, you should go back and focus on your studies. I understand. Goodbye, young Master Gu. Peng turned back 3 times for every step, her eyes lingering on Junqing's expressionless face with apparent reluctance. Once she walked out of Lu Qingyi's room, Peng's expression returned to normal. Her mood was volatile and uncertain. She could only rely on this female identity to make her move, hoping to sow discord between Junqing and Lu Qingyi. She had to hurry and unite various factions to oppose Junqing, otherwise, if she waited any longer, Lu Qingyi might truly never belong to her again. Every time she thought of the striking red mark on Lu Qingyi's snow-white neck, she felt a wave of bitterness. Originally, she had viewed Lu Qingyi merely as an unreachable goddess and a diva. But the moment she actually met Lu Qingyi, an overwhelming ambition to possess her had taken root in her heart. Fortunately, she possessed the means to achieve it. Others had backgrounds, but she had a system. Others had families, but she had a system. Others had talent, but she had a system. As long as she was given time, she could obtain everything, including Lu Qingyi, the lofty queen of the music industry. Yet, Lu Qingyi was now involved in an ambiguous, unclear relationship with another man. It felt as though something that belonged exclusively to her was now being possessed and kissed by someone else. How could she not be enraged? But when she had seen Junqing and Lu Qingyi about to kiss through the gap in the door, feelings of struggle, complexity, bitterness, and jealousy had intertwined in her heart. Afterward, she had inexplicably felt a strange, indescribable sense of pleasure, as if the dull pain carried a certain gratification that she found impossible to resist. How could I have such a thought? It must be because my body has been altered too much by that genetic virus. Peng, who had been reflecting on that moment, suddenly felt a jolt of alarm and hurriedly blamed the genetic virus for the sensation. However, she did not know that the drug Junqing had given her was only intended to alter a person's body and sexual orientation. Peng knew that now was not the time to sit around, but she currently lacked a good way to stop Junqing. Perhaps only by truly making a name for myself in the entertainment industry will I be able to win her over, Peng muttered to herself. The pressure Junqing exerted on her was too great. With a prominent family background, outstanding looks, and unparalleled ability, she would have honestly wanted to give up, if not for the physical changes and her extreme infatuation with Lu Qingyi. I will definitely make you mine. A flash of ruthlessness crossed Peng's eyes. After turning back to take one last look at Lu Qingyi's office, she made up her mind and walked away. Chapter 1087. After Peng left, the atmosphere between Junqing and Lu Qingyi fell into a sudden silence. Lu Qingyi's beautiful eyes turned cold, and she kept looking at Junqing as if he were a piece of trash. Junqing was no fool, so he naturally understood why she was looking at him like that. In his heart, he couldn't help but curse that bastard Peng, who tried to sabotage him even as he was leaving. However, Lu Qingyi did not know that Peng was a man in disguise, so it was reasonable for her to misunderstand that Junqing had fallen for Peng. Even Junqing hadn't realized at first that Peng was actually a man. Explain yourself, why were you so good to Ming? Lu Qingyi's pretty face was cold as she stared fixedly at his face, trying not to miss a single change in his expression. Was Junqing really the type of person to do things without expecting a reward? She even felt that he was treating Peng better than he treated her. Even when she wanted to ask Junqing for help, she had to carefully consider his hidden motives for fear that he might sell her out somehow. Why would he go out of his way to take such good care of Peng just because of her? Originally, she hadn't suspected anything, assuming he was only helping Peng out of respect for her. But the shy and timid look Peng gave earlier made her alert. Perhaps the two of them had some unspeakable secrets. And how many unspeakable secrets could there really be between a man and a woman? It could only be an affair. Peng was the girlfriend of her eighth brother, Tianyan, so was Junqing trying to steal another man's girlfriend? Lu Qingyi had always thought that even if Junqing was a bit lecherous, he at least had a bottom line. After all, according to her investigations, although there were many rumors about his love life, most were fabricated and there was little hard evidence. She didn't expect that while this bastard was already tangled up with someone else's sister, he was actually trying to steal someone's girlfriend as well. Things between a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law. Having seen all sorts of scandals in the entertainment industry, Lu Qingyi had already imagined the whole story between Junqing and Peng. I did it so you wouldn't have to work so hard. Junqing couldn't help but feel aggrieved. If he knew what was going through her mind, he would probably be too disgusted to eat. However, he couldn't tell her about Peng's cross-dressing yet, as revealing it would likely cause the luck on Peng to dissipate immediately. He wasn't ready to fully absorb Peng's luck just yet. After all, he still had to capture Peng's system. For me, Lu Qingyi's pretty face showed a hint of doubt. Otherwise, your farewell concert is coming up soon and you're busy, so if you were also responsible for Ming's affairs, you wouldn't have much time left for me. Junqing almost slipped up when saying Peng's name, and quickly glossed over it. Is that so? Lu Qingyi nodded suspiciously, unsure whether she believed him or not. Of course, Junqing nodded affirmatively. Time for me. What do you want to do with me? Lu Qingyi changed the subject and suddenly asked with great interest. She didn't want to dwell on the matter of Junqing and Peng anymore. Anyway, Junqing didn't look like he had actually done anything with Peng. On the contrary, it was Peng's expression that made Lu Qingyi overthink things. Could it be that Peng no longer liked her eighth brother, Tianyan? After all, Junqing's appearance was extremely seductive to women, so if Peng had a change of heart, it would be understandable. Of course, understanding was one thing, but she would certainly not support it. As long as she occupied all of Junqing's time from now on, she didn't believe he would be able to flirt with other women. Chapter 1088. The time I'm leaving for you? What do you want to do with me? Lu Qingyi decided to put her work aside for now, as she needed to keep a close eye on Junqing. She wanted to prevent him from running off to seduce other women. I'll take you out to have some fun, first. A timely smile appeared on Junqing's lips, with lines so soft and warm that it felt like one could feel the sunshine on a cold winter night. Go out and have fun. Lu Qingyi sighed helplessly. How could I dare to go out on the streets? In the Xia Kingdom, Lu Qingyi was at the very least widely known, if not a household name. If she dared to walk onto the street, it would definitely draw a crowd and potentially even cause a blockade. Furthermore, her work schedule was usually extremely tight, including filming, promotions, and performances, leaving her little time to appear in public. When she was busy, she didn't even have time to contact her sisters. Consequently, ever since she became famous, she had rarely been to crowded places. This was also the reason she was considering retiring. If she wanted to live with her 7 sisters, without being overly disturbed by the outside world, retiring from the entertainment industry was inevitable. Even after retiring, she likely wouldn't dare to go out for several years. She could only venture out to travel once the public gradually forgot about her status as a superstar. We can use makeup to disguise ourselves and bundle up well. Besides, I am not afraid of being spotted by your fans and having you stolen away, so what are you afraid of? Gu Junqing said with a light chuckle. He knew well that women loved contrast, much like the classic saying, if she is innocent, take her through the world of splendor. If she has seen it all, take her on a merry-go-round 10 times. People are drawn to reversals and contrasts because the human brain reacts strongly to change. For example, if someone who never praises you pays you a rare compliment, you will feel much happier than if someone who always praises you pays you a routine compliment. This was also a form of contrast. Regardless, taking Lu Qingyi, who had always lived her life buried in work, out to travel and experience a different lifestyle was definitely the right move. Fine then. Lu Qingyi hesitated before agreeing. Her main objective was to sever the contact between Gu Junqing and Peng. She would just keep a close eye on Gu Junqing for the time being. After reaching an agreement, the two of them went back to their respective rooms. Once Gu Junqing returned to his room, Lu Qingyi hesitated for a moment before taking out her phone to make a call. Third sister, why are you calling me? Has something happened? The anxious voice of the son of destiny, Tianyan, came through the phone. Nothing happened. I'm just telling you that you need to show more care for your girlfriend. I've noticed you haven't been looking after her, and if you don't treat her well, you'd better be careful, or she might run off, Lu Qingyi said meaningfully. In her view, the reason Peng showed signs of having a change of heart was surely because Tianyan cared for him too little. Tianyan on the other end was speechless. He felt a bit helpless in his heart, as it was strange for him to be with Peng in the first place, and at the time, he had been somewhat blinded by pressure from Gu Junqing. In reality, having calmed down, he discovered that he didn't actually like Peng. Moreover, he did not want to stay with Peng, as he always felt his mood would become stifled whenever he was around him. I understand, he replied. Tianyan thought it over and realized that Peng was the girlfriend he had promised his sisters he would take care of. If he were to abandon him, he feared his sisters would blame him, so he agreed to the request. Chapter 1089. I understand. I will pay more attention to her. Tianyan thought it over. Peng was, after all, the girlfriend he had promised his sisters he would take care of. He was afraid his sisters would blame him if he abandoned her, so he agreed. That is good. Lu Qingyi sighed in relief after hearing Tianyan's promise. As long as the relationship between Peng and Tianyan remained the same, Peng would not likely have a change of heart. As long as Peng did not make the first move, Gu Junqing would certainly not be able to do anything to her. Besides, she would stay by Gu Junqing's side to monitor him. Thinking of this, Lu Qingyi felt a weight lift from her heart, and her mood improved significantly. What have you been busy with lately? You seem even busier than I am. Do you need any help? Lu Qingyi asked casually. Since she returned to the capital, she had not seen Tianyan very often. There were not many survivors from the orphanage back then, and she still cared for the little brother who used to follow her and her 6 sisters around when they were children. I do have some matters to attend to recently, but I do not need help. Your brother is quite capable now. Tianyan spoke vaguely. He had never told his sisters his true identity because he wanted to play the fool to surprise them at a critical moment. He wanted them to know that their brother was someone they could rely on. If he kept letting his sisters help him, he would forever remain the little brother in their eyes. He was determined to win his sisters over. Therefore, he did not tell Lu Qingyi specifically what he was doing. Do not worry, third sister. I will visit you every day as soon as I have free time. Tianyan forced a smile, though he felt a sense of agitation inside. If he were not truly tied up with work, he would never have stayed away from his sisters for so long. Ever since he returned to the Xia kingdom, his life had gone from smooth sailing to a series of disasters and misfortunes. Recently, there was a family named Jiang that had been causing trouble for his Azura society. They claimed that a killer had wiped out many of his subordinates, and that the killer had even declared his name, the Azura King. When he heard that, he almost laughed in anger. What professional killer would leave their own name behind after a hit? It was clearly a setup to frame him. At first, Tianyan intended to have his subordinates explain the misunderstanding, but the Jiang family refused to listen and continued to harass the Azura society. This infuriated Tianyan, and he almost confronted them directly. He had never met anyone who dared to make things difficult for him, the Azura King. If it were not for the restrictions on violence within the Xia kingdom, he might have acted personally. Did they really think a few grandmasters were enough to protect the heads of the Jiang family leaders? Your third sister is not a lonely old woman, so just focus on your own work. If you really want to visit, remember to tell me in advance so I can arrange my schedule. Lu Qingyi's heart skipped a beat as she heard this. She had planned to spend some time traveling and having fun with Gu Junqing during this period. Not to mention whether she should bring Tianyan along. The animosity between Gu Junqing and him meant they would likely fight on sight. Understood. By the way, third sister, stay away from Gu Junqing. He is not a good person, so if he bothers you, you must tell me. Tianyan suddenly remembered and urged her again. He knew that Gu Junqing was currently helping Lu Qingyi handle matters, meaning they were spending all their time together. However, he trusted his third sister, knowing that she had an aversion to men. If Gu Junqing tried to get too close to her, his sister might actually grow to dislike him. This would make it easier for him to bring her over to his side in opposing Gu Junqing's attempts to get close to his sisters. Chapter 1090. Third sister, you must keep your distance from Gu Junqing. He is not a good person. If he bothers you, you must tell me immediately, and please be extremely careful around him. Tianyan suddenly remembered something and quickly gave this instruction. His primary goal was to let his sisters see Gu Junqing's true face, while also preventing Gu Junqing from harassing them. If Gu Junqing truly harbored ill intentions toward Lu Qingyi, once his sisters saw through his facade, they would no longer hesitate to protect his life. At that point, Tianyan could strike without restraint. Even if it cost him everything, he would surely kill Gu Junqing. You do not need to worry about my affairs, third sister, Lu Qingyi said, feeling a bit guilty. She heard the tone in Tianyan's voice, and knew that if she admitted she and Gu Junqing were already well on their way to being a couple, only one of them would likely survive the encounter. She had heard that her eighth brother possessed a significant foundation and some personal strength. However, she had personally experienced Gu Junqing's unfathomable power, and his background force went without saying. How could Tianyan possibly be his match? She believed that the only reason Gu Junqing had not harmed Tianyan yet was out of consideration for them, his sisters. It must be said that Tianyan's habit of playing the fool to hide his strength had inadvertently lowered his sister's evaluation of him. By the way, you should also stop opposing Gu Junqing. After all, he is your brother-in-law. Lu Qingyi pondered for a moment before offering this advice. She truly did not want to see a conflict break out between Tianyan and Gu Junqing. She finally understood why their second sister found their relationship so headache-inducing. The sisters had received great kindness from the orphanage when they were young, and they naturally held Tianyan, their last remaining peer, in high regard. To them, he was practically family. Meanwhile, Gu Junqing was their man. It would be best if she could resolve the hatred between Tianyan and Gu Junqing. If it could not be resolved, she would simply have to keep it hidden from him. Brother-in-law? He is not a damn brother-in-law. Seventh sister is still young, and she only agreed to be with that bastard Gu Junqing because he looks good. She must have been deceived by that hypocrite. Third sister, please believe me. I can tell at a glance that Gu Junqing is no good. You must not let him fool you. Tianyan's voice was filled with deep-seated hatred. Fearing that Lu Qingyi might also be taken in by Gu Junqing's appearance, he spoke with anxious urgency. Whenever he imagined his delicate, beautiful seventh sister beneath his greatest enemy, Gu Junqing, he felt a violent rage and yearned to kill the man with his own hands. Seventh sister, Yushan? Lu Qingyi looked dazed. She knew that her seventh sister, Yushan, was acquainted with Gu Junqing, but she did not know the exact nature of their relationship. Suddenly, a guess surfaced in her mind. Could the seventh sister also be one of Gu Junqing's women? Don't you know, third sister? Didn't second sister tell you? Hearing Lu Qingyi mutter the name of their seventh sister, Yushan, Tianyan asked with suspicion. She mentioned it, but she did not tell me the specifics. Lu Qingyi hesitated. She could feel Tianyan's agitation, and chose to keep the truth from him for now. At this moment, she felt a flare of anger within her. Her eyes, which usually resembled a brilliant galaxy, now burned with two flickering flames of fire. Chapter 1091. As Tianyan recounted the events over the phone, Lu Qingyi's expression grew increasingly calm. However, anyone could see the raging fire suppressed within her, much like a dormant volcano waiting to erupt. That is the situation as I understand it. Seventh sister was deceived by Gu Junqing while she was drunk, and he even. Tianyan began with fury, though his voice turned sorrowful by the end. He had wanted to take revenge and ensure that Gu Junqing would never have descendants, but seventh sister had stopped him. She warned him that if anything happened to Gu Junqing, she would hold him accountable. At that moment, he realized that seventh sister Yushan had fallen deeply in love. If she had only lost her innocence, he might have been able to accept it if she cut ties with Gu Junqing and allowed him to exact revenge. But since she had been captured in both body and soul by that bastard, he felt constrained. He could only swallow his anger and bear the injustice in silence. Later on, sixth sister, fifth sister, and even second sister stepped in to plead on his behalf. I didn't dare to act, as I was afraid that if I retaliated, my sisters would stop talking to me. He spoke with desperate urgency. So third sister, don't let his refined and polished appearance fool you. He is a scumbag who toys with women, and even my sisters have been deceived by him. When he first saw Gu Junqing, he knew the man was no good. He had desperately wanted his sisters to see Gu Junqing's true colors, but they trusted the man completely and instead scolded him, demanding that he make peace with him. This filled him with such grievance and resentment that he felt like spitting blood. He could only project all this hatred onto Gu Junqing, blaming him entirely for the rift with his sisters. However, the man hid his nature so well that he could not find any evidence to prove he was a hypocritical scumbag. Lu Qingyi, despite being shocked and infuriated by the realization that Gu Junqing and her second sister had hidden so much from her, maintained a cold composure as she asked, "Do you have any evidence to prove he deceived seventh sister?" No one knew what she was thinking in that moment. She had assumed that Gu Junqing was merely in an ambiguous relationship with her second sister, never expecting that he was entangled with her other sisters as well. How many more things was this man hiding from her? Even her own sisters had teamed up with him to keep her in the dark. Those sisters were completely siding with an outsider. Tianyan was struck dumb by the question. He truly had no evidence regarding the specific circumstances between Gu Junqing and Shi Yushin. As the dignified king of Azura, however, he had never needed evidence to act. If someone displeased him, he would simply kill them or cripple them. Furthermore, he had long regarded his 7 sisters as his own private possessions. He naturally loathed the man who had stolen his sister's innocence. Fine, I have a general understanding of the situation now. I will investigate the specific details myself. If he is truly that kind of person, I will. Lu Qingyi stopped mid-sentence, unable to finish her thought. Having unexpectedly learned the truth, her heart was in a state of chaotic turmoil. She was unable to process any further information. After hanging up the phone, she sat on the sofa, lost in deep thought about what to do next. Chapter 1092. Tianyan wanted to continue disparaging Gu Junqing in front of Lu Qingyi. However, seeing that she had hung up the phone, he clicked his tongue and let out a cold snort. Humph, Gu Junqing, if it were not for you, my sisters would never treat me this way. In his view, he and his 7 sisters all came from an orphanage, lacking a normal family life, parental love, and emotional communication with relatives. This background made them cherish each other all the more. If Gu Junqing did not exist, his sisters would surely only dote on him. Gu Junqing, that bastard, had stolen so much of his sister's attention that Tianyan could not help but feel jealous. All 7 of his stunning, beautiful sisters belonged to him, and they should all be his. After calming down, he finally had time to walk back into the conference room. Several key members of the Azura Association had been in the middle of urgent negotiations with the Jiang family, but Tianyan had interrupted the meeting to take Lu Qingyi's call. Now that the Azura king had returned, the meeting could proceed. The Jiang family and the Azura Association sat on opposite sides, with the Jiang family displaying the arrogant, disdainful attitude typical of an aristocratic clan. Every member of the Azura Association sat as cold as ice, their eyes deep and bottomless, revealing a stern, murderous aura. If this were not the Xia kingdom, but some lawless region, they would have already cut these people down. Azura king, you have quite the ego, making so many of us wait for your single phone call. The emissary from the Jiang family looked at Tianyan, who wore the Azura king mask, and let out a sneer. Those who insult the king shall die. One member of the Azura Association stared coldly at the Jiang family representative. Is that so? Then why is the mysterious person who raided your king's former home still alive? Is that not enough of an insult to him? The Jiang family member suddenly laughed, speaking with an air of composure. Bang! This remark immediately infuriated all the members of the Azura Association. Each member could no longer maintain their cold expression, and they slammed the table and stood up to glare at him, every one of them ready to strike. If you came here to provoke me, none of you need to leave, Tianyan said with dark, gloomy eyes. He had been quite pleased when these people, who claimed to be from the Jiang family, arrived for negotiations today. He wanted to settle the matter quickly, so he could go back to protecting his sisters, as he did not want to waste his precious time on these affairs. Had his headquarters not been raided by someone unknown, leaving the members of the Azura Association in a panic and requiring him to provide answers, he would have already gone to find his sisters. He did not know why, but ever since he returned to the Xia kingdom, he felt as if a hand behind the scenes was controlling everything. In his many years as the Azura king, he had offended too many people to care about those acting in the shadows. However, what bothered him was that he could not yet see what that hand behind the scenes was trying to achieve. What? Your Azura Association has killed so many of our subordinates, and you want to kill us now? You must realize that this is the Xia kingdom, and our Jiang family is not to be trifled with. The Jiang family member spoke with a fierce, but hollow voice. Chapter 1093. If we were not in the Xia kingdom, do you think you would still be standing here talking to me? Tianyan looked at the group of Jiang family members coldly, his voice freezing the air. A killing intent permeated the surroundings. It seemed that if these men dared to utter another provocative word, he would strike immediately. He had heard about the casualties among the Jiang family subordinates. When his Azura society was falsely blamed for the incident, he had specifically ordered an investigation. After all, times had changed, and he preferred to avoid conflicts with other organizations whenever possible. Furthermore, both the method and the means used in the attack were clearly not the style of his Azura society. This was such an obvious frame-up that a simple conversation should have cleared things up. However, seeing the arrogant and superior attitude of the Jiang family members, who seemed to have already decided that he was responsible, Tianyan could not be bothered to explain any further. Did they really think that because his Azura society headquarters had been destroyed, he was powerless against them? I have heard that the members of the Azura society are vicious and tyrannical, but seeing you today, the reality exceeds the rumors. The Azura society may be powerful, but do you think the Jiang family is someone you can provoke? One of the Jiang family representatives stepped forward to deliver his threat. Do not forget that this is the Xia kingdom, not your headquarters in the Eagle country. Even if it were the headquarters, it was still destroyed, so are you trying to follow in those footsteps? If you dare to threaten the Azura society, you had better sleep with your eyes open tonight. One of Tianyan's subordinates, stung by the insult, retorted furiously. The others clearly reached for their waistbands, ready to draw their weapons at the slightest provocation. Most members of the Azura society had rolled through oceans of blood, and for them, physical violence was far easier than verbal debate. Fine, we have seen the attitude of the Azura society. You just wait, we are leaving. The Jiang family members seemed to sense the danger, threw out a final threat, and promptly took all their men with them. They departed with hurried steps, as if afraid an accident might occur. Once they had driven away from the Azura Society territory and reached their own stronghold, the leader finally let out a sigh of relief, feeling certain that no one was following them anymore. Even while driving at high speed, he had felt like someone was tailing them the entire way. They had acted a bit too recklessly just now, and they had nearly triggered those bloodthirsty monsters. Fortunately, those people were trained killers who could usually control their tempers well, unlike the typical hot-headed thugs associated with organized crime. These people were genuine killers for whom taking a life was an everyday occurrence. The young master's orders have been carried out. Now we must head to the Jiang family, as the uniforms and special masks of the Azura Society have been forged and are ready for distribution. The leader turned to his teammates who had accompanied him to the negotiation and asked seriously, "Have you all learned the expressions of those Azura Society members we just met?" The men paused to think, each doing their best to imitate the expressions of the Azura Society members they had just encountered. Every face suddenly became indifferent, and their eyes revealed the cruel gaze of a hunter, appearing like cold blades ready to pierce unsuspecting prey at any moment. Good, that is perfect. Use this demeanor when you go to negotiate with the Jiang family. Your attitude must be arrogant and cold, but do not go too far. Understood. After discussing all the details, this group headed to the Jiang family's territory to negotiate with Jiang Tian and his people. Naturally, their behavior caused the Jiang family members to fly into a rage again. Both the Jiang family and Dao Tianyan's Azura Society remained oblivious to the fact that a third party was stirring up the storm between them. Chapter 1094. Junqing intended to find some trouble for Dao Tianyan, so he would not interfere with his own efforts to woo the heroines. Compared to Dao Tianyan, that cross-dressing son of luck, Peng, was not even in the same league. Regardless, Dao Tianyan was incapable of standing idly by at the doorstep while watching someone else with a woman he fancied. This was to be expected. Without the halo of destiny influencing things, Peng was just an ordinary person who had never faced any real setbacks or challenges. Dao Tianyan, however, had truly fought his way out from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. If you offended him over a single word, he might very well come looking for you in the middle of the night. Junqing could treat someone like Peng as a mere plaything in the palm of his hand. Dao Tianyan, on the other hand, possessed the capability to escape Junqing's grasp. Although both were sons of luck, their fate and abilities were simply not in the same league. Therefore, Junqing naturally had to pay much closer attention to Dao Tianyan. While the Jiang family was nothing compared to Junqing, they were sufficient to keep Dao Tianyan occupied and limit his time. This way, Junqing would have more time to focus on pursuing the heroines. After receiving reports from his subordinates, Junqing was quite satisfied with his planning. With a son of luck, one must neither suppress them too harshly nor indulge them too much. It was essential to strike a balance, maintaining a rhythm that was both measured and relentless, wave after wave. "Third sister, what are you doing?" Junqing asked. Seeing that Dao Tianyan was tied up again, Junqing went to find Lu Qingyi with a sense of satisfaction. As he walked into her office, he saw Lu Qingyi sitting quietly in her chair, busily working on the various documents on her desk. The morning sunlight hit her flawless, exquisite face. Her high, elegant nose and lips, coated with a light gloss, shimmered with a moist luster in the dawn light, making one want to take a bite at any moment to savor the itch-inducing temptation. Then there was her hair, magnificent yet elegant, draping softly over her back, tied only by a thin black string. It hung loose and dense, paired with two locks framing her face, exuding a breathtaking charm. A single ponytail is nice, but twin tails really increase attack speed. Junqing silently rated Lu Qingyi's outfit for the day, murmuring to himself. After what happened in the last few days, Junqing had expected a warm welcome. Instead, when Lu Qingyi heard him, her expression was not what he had imagined, as she stared at him coldly. Junqing's heart skipped a beat. How did things revert to the old ways after just one night? The speed at which a woman changes her mind is faster than a rocket. He really had not done anything last night, except maybe flirting with the girls in his backyard. Did I send her a message meant for another girl? That is impossible. How could someone like me commit such a rookie mistake? Junqing quickly dismissed this thought. Then Lu Qingyi's change in mood must have nothing to do with him. What is wrong with you? Why do you look like someone owes you money? Junqing asked cautiously. Who owes me? Who else could it be? Lu Qingyi sneered, her eyes shooting cold, piercing arrows directly at Junqing. Chapter 1095. Ever since she learned about Junqing's relationship with her sisters from Dao Tianyan, she had been in a state of constant anger. It was not jealousy or envy, but simply the feeling of being deceived and kept in the dark. Furthermore, she was being deceived by the sisters she loved the most. She had noticed that her sisters had been acting secretive lately, as if they were hiding something from her. Especially when discussing Junqing, the 5th, 6th, and 7th sisters were evasive and stammering. They covered for each other as if they shared a tacit understanding. She understood these sisters very well. Her 6th sister, Peng, was intelligent and pursued the truth, which was how she achieved such great success in scientific research. Her 5th sister, Chu Yechin, was as cunning as a demon, cold, and powerful. Although she was described as a beautiful fox in business, she was extremely straightforward in her interactions with her sisters. Lu Qingyi ran the possibilities through her mind and narrowed the target down to her seventh sister. Moreover, based on what she learned from Dao Tianyan, her seventh sister Shi Yushan was the first among them to make contact with Gu Junqing. Their relationship had even crossed the final boundary. Now she understood why Gu Junqing seemed to know everything about her. For instance, when she complained in their sisters' group chat about the cold environment in the capital, Gu Junqing immediately began checking on her. He would ask about her well-being frequently, which had left her feeling flattered at the time. Whenever she encountered trouble in her work or daily life, Gu Junqing would arrive to express his concern and offer his help. Even when she was on her period, Gu Junqing was extremely attentive, often telling her to drink more hot water. Although this stereotypical behavior made her feel that Gu Junqing was being a bit perfunctory, it still warmed her heart. At first, she thought that Gu Junqing was carefully and genuinely paying attention to her. After all, their second sister had ordered Gu Junqing to take good care of her. It was precisely because of the belief that Gu Junqing, despite his bad personality, was a good man, that her opinion of him had changed. He had taken great risks to eliminate the remnants of the Dark Castle for her sake. This caused her to shift from initial hostility to a dynamic where even their conflicts felt like playful banter. They mostly just bickered and refused to yield in arguments, nothing more. Now, looking back, these actions of Gu Junqing were clearly calculated and long planned. It was obvious that there was a traitor among her sisters, who told Gu Junqing everything about her movements. This was definitely something only that little trickster, her seventh sister, could pull off. Her reason for turning against Gu Junqing was precisely this. She had originally felt that although he was a bit of a playboy, he still held some genuine sincerity for her. After all, why would a man of such prominent status as Gu Junqing be so caring and considerate toward a woman? Even if the woman was beautiful, what did that matter? Powerful families like his could get any woman they wanted. That was how she thought at the beginning, believing that Gu Junqing could not keep up the act for many days. The most critical point was that the care and consideration Gu Junqing showed her did not seem like an intentional attempt to please someone, an act she could spot instantly. Gu Junqing's care was like rain nourishing the earth, able to penetrate every corner and fill her soul completely. That was exactly how she had fallen into Gu Junqing's trap. Chapter 1096. In short, Gu Junqing's actions appeared highly purposeful in Lu Qingyi's eyes. In reality, Lu Qingyi's initial impression of Gu Junqing had been quite poor. Lu Qingyi was a woman with a high sense of self-worth. This was not only due to her stunning beauty, but also because she was a pop diva held high on a pedestal by millions of fans. Yet, even a woman like her had been deceived by the man standing before her during their very first meeting. In the various encounters that followed, she had suffered many losses, and she could not even begin to count how many times she had been taken advantage of by him. Because of this, when she first felt Gu Junqing's care for her, even Lu Qingyi felt a sense of self-satisfaction. No matter how handsome or outstanding this man was, he would still eventually end up kneeling before her. But now, she was being told that it was all a lie. Gu Junqing had started deceiving her the moment she stepped off the plane and onto the land of the capital, and even his affection might be fake. Of course, she was not stupid, and she would not harbor extravagant hopes for the feelings of a man like Gu Junqing, who was clearly a pure scoundrel. Her own initial motives were not entirely pure either. She might have initially accepted Gu Junqing just to alleviate her second sister's guilt. However, after he treated her so well, she began to grow greedy for his genuine affection. Even if their initial purpose was not pure, could there not be a shred of true emotion between them? Although she knew that discussing true love with someone like Gu Junqing was an extravagant hope, what woman did not want her man to love her regardless of external conditions? This was the reason why women constantly ask their boyfriends whether they love them for their appearance or their inner self. This was why Lu Qingyi felt such a profound sense of betrayal. All the things Gu Junqing had done, his meticulous observations of her, they were all false. It was all a lie. This brought her to the classic question women ask about men: does he love me, or does he just want to sleep with me? At this moment, she was no longer the exalted pop diva, but a woman filled with disappointment, sorrow, and anger, discovering that the person she liked might not truly love her. Ha, who owes me? Who else could it be? Seeing Lu Qingyi staring at him gloomily, radiating the aura of an aggrieved wife, as if she were shrouded in a layer of black mist and about to succumb to darkness, Gu Junqing could not help but blink in confusion. Does she mean me by that? Gu Junqing was also puzzled, wondering if he had been under surveillance, or perhaps he had been caught flirting with another woman. That was impossible. A man like him was not comparable to those amateur time management masters who eventually crash and get caught. If he had to rank himself, he would at least be at a grandmaster level. Furthermore, he had been afraid of such a day, so he had already been transparent with Lu Qingyi from the start. She had not shown such resentment under those circumstances, so why would she be holding him accountable now? Gu Junqing carefully observed Lu Qingyi's expression. He discovered that her resentment did not seem like the jealousy of a woman who had caught him with someone else, but rather like the disappointment of someone who felt their genuine intentions had been let down. I do not know what I did wrong, as everything was fine just last night, Gu Junqing said helplessly. The saying that a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea was certainly true. Chapter 1097. You did nothing wrong. It was my fault for expecting so much, Lu Qingyi said, her face expressionless. Expecting so much? Was she expecting feelings, a career, or a future from him? Gu Junqing frowned as he listened, forming a guess in his mind. Could this girl be doubting his sincerity? Or perhaps fearing he could not offer her a future? Gu Junqing felt a headache coming on regarding such matters. Women were mostly emotional and held a strong desire for happiness and fulfillment, especially someone like Lu Qingyi who lacked a sense of security. Having mixed in the entertainment industry for so many years, he had experienced all sorts of absurd things. The music circle Lu Qingyi was in was slightly better, but acting circles were chaotic beyond belief. Things like set couples, one-night stands, and sleeping with others were considered far too normal. When filming for a few months, people would solve their physical needs together, then split up once the project ended, acting like strangers the next day. To outsiders, this sounded outrageous, but it had formed a sort of unspoken rule within the industry. While fans and passers-by might not know, how could Lu Qingyi, having witnessed this for so many years, not be aware? It was incredibly difficult for Lu Qingyi to reach her current position without getting mixed up with those people. When corruption becomes the norm, innocence becomes a crime. In such a situation, even Lu Qingyi could not easily break the rules. Having seen so much in such a repressed environment, it was hard enough not to become twisted, let alone maintain one's original intentions. This made it easy to understand why Lu Qingyi was so angry. She had thought she finally found a sincere relationship, only to discover the other party was deceiving her from the start. Anyone would feel awful in her position. Because of this, Gu Junqing had almost always taken a step back while interacting with her. Even when he acted against her to attract her attention, Gu Junqing never went too far, and always left a margin for error. Other heroines had never received this kind of treatment from him. He usually relied on forceful acquisition or calculated deception, prioritizing tricking the heroine into bed first. He followed a path of capturing half her heart, then her body, and finally conquering her completely. He had not used that method with Lu Qingyi. He wanted her to be willing. Yet, Lu Qingyi remained distrustful and uncooperative, maintaining the airs of a high and mighty diva. This began to frustrate Gu Junqing. If he kept being this soft, he felt he was becoming a loyal, spiritual simp for her. He had already done enough for her. But if he had to deal with this every time someone stirred up trouble, who could stand it? Lu Qingyi, are you starting to overthink things again? Tell me what is wrong, because I am too tired to guess your thoughts anymore. Gu Junqing looked at her and said calmly. Lu Qingyi lost her composure, and a wave of grievances filled her heart. She was about to speak, but the moment she met Gu Junqing's cold gaze, she understood everything. Perhaps Gu Junqing knew everything, but he was no longer willing to bow his head. She was not acting this time, as she truly felt unbearable pain inside. She only needed him to coax her a little more, and if he had just said he was sincere, could she really have left him? Those other women were her sisters, and she just wanted an attitude from him. Even with 1,000 reasons, now was not the time to open her mouth. Chapter 1098. Gu Junqing and Lu Qingyi stared at each other in silence, both waiting to see who would break first. At least, that was what Lu Qingyi expected. She convinced herself that if she held her ground, Gu Junqing would eventually cave and try to coax her. After all, he was the one in the wrong for keeping secrets from her for so long. She promised herself that the moment he tried to comfort her, she would forgive him for his deception. Lu Qingyi tried to bolster her resolve, but reality proved far different from her imagination. After staring at her for a moment, Gu Junqing simply turned around and walked away. He did not say another word. Seeing him turn away so decisively left even the seasoned Lu Qingyi stunned. Already stung by his cold demeanor, a surge of inexplicable grievance flooded her heart. Was he not the one who had made the mistake? Why was he able to turn his back on her so heartlessly? Did he really only approach her because he wanted her body? Even if that were true, why was he unwilling to even put in the effort to coax her? A torrent of questions swirled in her mind, yet as she watched Gu Junqing walk away, panic began to set in. She could not identify the root of her fear, but she knew that if he walked out that door now, restoring their previous dynamic might become impossible. She thought of the man who had personally eliminated the former members of the Dark Castle just to heal her psychological scars. She remembered the Gu Junqing who could make her laugh and cry, the man who could take advantage of her without provoking her disgust. A wave of reluctance washed over her. She did not want this relationship to change in any way. Even if their connection had begun on questionable foundations, she still refused to let it go. Where are you going? Lu Qingyi mustered the courage to call out, her voice trembling and hoarse. Gu Junqing stopped in his tracks, not bothering to turn around. Unconcerned with her internal struggle, he spoke coldly before continuing toward the exit. Sister Lu, since you are unwilling to listen to me, and refuse to explain the reason for your anger, I am leaving. He did not need to think twice to realize that Lu Qingyi's cold attitude stemmed from something she had learned, or the influence of someone else's provocation. The list of suspects was short. It had to be one of her 7 sisters, or perhaps the protagonists of Fortune, Tianyan or Peng. Only those parties could exert enough influence on her. Besides the eldest and 4th sisters he had yet to meet, the other sisters were already caught in his web, making it unlikely they would speak against him. That left only the 2 protagonists. Regardless of what they had told her, the fact that Lu Qingyi chose to believe outsiders over him instead of asking for his side of the story was problematic. He had to teach her a lesson. He would not tolerate a woman of his who prioritized the words of strangers over his own. They had been fine when they parted the previous night, yet by this morning, her attitude had undergone such a drastic shift. Junqing found this emotional volatility rather tiresome. Even knowing that her affection for him remained extremely high, he felt the same. Women could be spoiled, but they could not be pretentious. They should know when to act cute and when to show vulnerability. He felt that Lu Qingyi had become too accustomed to being pampered, to the point where she was bringing her diva-like stage persona into their private life. He was willing to indulge her occasionally, but enduring this every day only led to exhaustion. Chapter 1099. Where are you going? Lu Qingyi gathered her courage to call out to Junqing, her voice trembling and raspy. She did not understand why Junqing could turn and leave so heartlessly when he was clearly the one in the wrong. Since you are unwilling to listen to me, or even explain the reason for your anger, I suppose I will leave. Junqing's cold words and distant tone left Lu Qingyi feeling as though she had been plunged into an icy abyss. She finally saw him for who he truly was. He was only gentle when he had a purpose, while his true self was cold to the core. Yet, what did that matter? Had she not been prepared for this all along? Grief and resentment intertwined in Lu Qingyi's heart. This was a feeling she had never experienced before. In the past, she could easily obtain whatever she desired, with countless people lining up to cater to her every whim. Whatever she posted on online platforms was met with instant adulation. This pain and grievance felt different from the sorrow she had felt 10 years ago, when she saw those poor girls in the dark castle. That had been a mix of pity, hatred, and disappointment in human nature. Now, however, the suffocating resentment had to be bottled up inside, which felt unbearable. She wanted him to know how she felt, yet she feared he would misunderstand, that she could not explain herself clearly, or that more misunderstandings would arise. Don't go. Seeing that Junqing continued to walk away, Lu Qingyi could no longer suppress her emotions. She cast aside all her pride, feeling shaky, lost, and bewildered, much like a little girl. At this moment, she had shed all the arrogance of a superstar diva, desperate only to keep this heartless man by her side. Romantic relationships are complicated things. Furthermore, love is a gamble, a wager that the other person is sincere, and will offer their heart in return. Since it is a gamble, one can never be entirely certain of the outcome. If Junqing did not possess a system that allowed him to see the affection levels of his heroines, even he would be unable to completely decipher a woman's heart. However, this did not prevent him from using certain methods to turn this relationship into a bargaining chip. He was betting on whether Lu Qingyi's affection for him during this time was more important than the inherent pride she possessed. This haughty attitude was not necessarily bad. On the contrary, it gave Lu Qingyi her unique flair and charm. Being placed high on a pedestal by countless admirers only fueled a man's desire to conquer, satisfying his ego and vanity. Junqing did not care for such things. In his view, every heroine was exceptional and beautiful, even if there were differences between them. Who was truly inferior to whom? He desired a woman who trusted him wholeheartedly, rather than one who kept secrets from him. He did not care if his women were proud, willful, or even spoiled and temperamental. He did not even mind if they had their own ambitions. What he truly cared about was whether he occupied a position in their hearts that surpassed everything else. He valued whether they could change their character, behavior, or conduct for his sake when necessary, and whether they would unconditionally stand by his side during conflicts. That was what he prioritized most. That was why he had answered so coldly when Lu Qingyi asked where he was going. He wanted to see if she would abandon her pride for him. As the facts proved, he had won his gamble. Chapter 1100. Don't go. Seeing that Junqing still intended to leave, Lu Qingyi could no longer suppress her inner emotions. She cast aside all her pride, feeling trembling, lost, and bewildered, much like a wronged little girl. Perhaps anyone in Lu Qingyi's position would feel aggrieved. It was clearly Junqing, this scoundrel, who had deceived her, yet she still had to lower herself to beg him not to leave. In her mind, Junqing currently seemed to like her only because of her looks. He was merely lusting after her body. However, based on her understanding of his nature, even if she were twice as beautiful as she was now, he would likely discard her the moment he decided he was finished. Why shouldn't I leave? Is there anything else you wish to accuse me of, Miss Lu? After Lu Qingyi spoke, Junqing stopped in his tracks at the perfect moment. He struck a composed pose before turning around to look at her, speaking in a deliberately cold voice. He clearly had the upper hand in this gamble called love. It was obvious that once he climbed on, he would never let her shake him off. Yet, one must still master the proper balance. Manipulating women is actually quite simple, provided one ensures they experience significant emotional fluctuations, which cannot be achieved through mere pandering. They will not remember what you sacrificed for them, but they will remember the person they traveled mountains and rivers to see. Yesterday you called me Qingyi, and today you call me Miss Lu. Lu Qingyi said this with a look of resentment. Her moist, glistening eyes were full of accusations, as if she were saying that he truly did not love her. Junqing understood Lu Qingyi perhaps better than she understood herself. She might not even have realized why she was displaying such girlish emotions. Junqing understood this as the lowered intelligence of someone in love. On one hand, love is an extremely emotional experience, and people often face various emotional swings like excitement, joy, tension, conflict, and loss. These emotional fluctuations affect decision-making and thought processes, leading to a temporary decline in IQ. On the other hand, the emotional nature of love easily causes people to lose themselves. In order to express their love, people often unconsciously lower their standards, tolerate the other person's flaws, or even condone bad behavior. During these moments, their judgment and logic are significantly compromised. In general, this lack of intelligence can be interpreted as childishness. It is akin to reverting to a kindergarten stage of relationship dynamics. Perhaps to Lu Qingyi, only a childlike, innocent way of interacting could provide her with a sense of security and fulfillment. She witnessed those tragic girls in the Dark Castle incident before her own values had fully formed. This dealt a massive blow to her soul and worldview, making it impossible for her to consider dating or falling for anyone since that day. Therefore, Lu Qingyi's approach to love had been distorted from the very beginning. She might not have even realized this herself. But Gu Junqing was a man who could get older women to call him whatever he pleased while others were still calling them auntie. So how could he fail to notice her style of romance? Regardless of who is on top, there must always be a dominant party to guide the relationship. In this regard, Gu Junqing always preferred to be the one on top, doing the moving himself. To be continued. Hope you liked today's video. Join the community by subscribing and dropping a like. I'll be back with another update as soon as possible. See you then.